Hello there, and welcome to Forgotten Worlds. My name is Thomas, and tonight I'd like to invite you to drift with me into one of the oldest questions we've ever asked. Take a slow breath. Let the day fall away. Feel the present moment loosen, as if time itself is unspooling around you. For as long as there have been people looking up at the night sky, we've wondered, where did all of this come from? The stars, the galaxies, the very fabric of space and time. Most scientists would tell us that the story begins with a single blazing instant, the Big Bang, about 13.8 billion years ago. A sudden expansion from something smaller than an atom, blooming into the universe we see scattered across the darkness above us. But what if that's not the whole story? What if the universe never truly began at all? What if there was no first spark, no singular moment when everything erupted from nothing, only a cosmos that has always been here, flowing endlessly, without a first dawn and without a final night? This is not a debate, but an exploration, not a search for certainty, but for wonder. So tonight, as you lie beneath the same sky that countless generations have gazed at before, we'll drift together into the possibility of eternity, a universe without beginning or end, only an endless rhythm, waiting for us to listen. And before we can explore that possibility, we need to pause with the story most of science accepts. A story that takes us back, not to forever, but to the moment we call the beginning, the birth of the Big Bang. When people first began to wonder about the cosmos, the natural assumption was that it had always been there. The stars above, so steady in their motions, seemed like permanent fixtures, lights pinned to the dome of heaven. For thousands of years, humanity looked upward and imagined the universe as eternal, vast, unchanging, a background stage upon which the brief play of human life unfolded. Even the greatest minds of science inherited this assumption. When Isaac Newton envisioned gravity pulling on every star, binding the heavens into a grand celestial clockwork, he still imagined that clockwork as eternal, with no beginning to its ticking. And even when Albert Einstein, in 1915, unveiled his revolutionary theory of general relativity, a theory that described space and time not as rigid containers, but as flexible fabric, he too hesitated to imagine a universe in motion. His equations pointed to an uncomfortable truth. Gravity, acting on all matter, should either pull the universe inward into collapse, or else it should be expanding outward. A static, eternal cosmos was not an option. Yet Einstein could not accept the idea of cosmic change on such a scale. He introduced a mathematical trick, the cosmological constant, to hold everything still. Later in life, he would call this adjustment the biggest blunder of my career. But the universe, it seems, was never interested in standing still. In the 1920s, a young Belgian priest and physicist named Georges Lemaitre began to see something hidden in Einstein's equations. If the universe was not static, if it was indeed expanding, then the present we see today might be the aftermath of an earlier, denser state. He proposed that everything, galaxies, stars, matter itself, had once been compressed into what he poetically called a primeval atom. From this singular seed, the universe expanded, unfolding like a story that had a first word. At the time, the idea seemed almost heretical, too close to theology for many scientists' comfort. To suggest the universe had a beginning felt unscientific, like smuggling myth into mathematics. And yet, the boldness of Lemaitre's idea lay not in its mysticism, but in its grounding in physics. His primeval atom was not a miracle, but a prediction drawn from the very equations Einstein had written. Evidence was needed, and soon it arrived in the form of light itself. In 1929, working from the Mount Wilson Observatory in California, astronomer Edwin Hubble began measuring the distances and motions of galaxies. What he found changed cosmology forever. Galaxies were not fixed points scattered in space. They were rushing away from us, their light stretched into redder wavelengths by their retreat, and the farther away they were, the faster they fled. The universe, in other words, was not static. It was expanding. Imagine standing in the middle of a vast meadow at night, lanterns scattered all around you. As you stand there, each lantern begins to drift outward, away from you and away from each other. From your perspective, it might seem as though you stand at the center, with everything receding from your place. But if you were standing at any lantern, the view would be the same, all others pulling away in every direction. This is the fabric of the cosmos, stretching and swelling, carrying galaxies outward on currents of space itself. If the universe is expanding now, then logic whispers something profound. In the past, it must have been smaller still before that. Trace the motion back far enough, and all the galaxies you see collapse into a single origin. That was the essence of Lemaitre's primeval atom. But theory alone does not convince. For decades, the idea of a Big Bang was treated with skepticism. Competing theories, like Fred Hoyle's steady-state model, argued that the universe had no beginning. It could expand, yes, but new matter was constantly created to fill the gaps, keeping its density eternal and unchanging. Hoyle found Lemaitre's picture almost absurd. In a 1949 BBC broadcast, he mockingly called it the Big Bang. The name stuck, even as the ridicule faded. The turning point came with the search for something subtler than galaxies, a fossil of the universe's earliest fire. Theorists predicted that if the cosmos began in a hot, dense state, the afterglow of that heat should still linger. As the universe expanded, the fireball would cool, its radiation stretched into microwave wavelengths, faint but universal, bathing all of space. For years, this prediction was little more than theory, until a pair of radio engineers stumbled upon it by accident. In 1965, Arno Penzias and Robert Wilson were working at Bell Labs in New Jersey, testing a massive horn-shaped antenna. No matter where they pointed it, they encountered a faint hiss of background noise. They tried everything, adjusting equipment, checking for interference from cities, even cleaning out pigeon droppings that had collected inside the antenna. Still, the hiss persisted. It was everywhere, uniform, unavoidable. What they had discovered was the cosmic microwave background radiation, the literal afterglow of creation, light from when the universe was only 380 years old. At that time, matter and energy cooled enough for atoms to form, allowing light to travel freely for the first time. That light has been traveling ever since, stretched into microwaves by billions of years of expansion. Today, it surrounds us, invisible to our eyes but present in every patch of sky. Imagine striking a bell and listening as the sound echoes endlessly in a cavern. The first strike fades, but its memory lingers in vibrations. The microwave background is that lingering echo, the soft hum of the universe's birth. It is not metaphor, it is literally detectable, mapped now in exquisite detail by satellites like COBE, WMAP, and Planck. And what those maps reveal is astonishing. The radiation is almost uniform, the same in every direction, but not perfectly so. There are tiny ripples, differences in temperature no larger than a few millionths of a degree. Those ripples were the seeds of all cosmic structure. They are why galaxies formed, why stars clustered, why planets and eventually life emerged. In those delicate variations, the blueprint of everything we know was written. This is why the Big Bang is not merely one theory among many. It is the foundation upon which modern cosmology rests. It explains the expansion of galaxies, the abundance of light elements like hydrogen and helium, the uniform bath of microwave radiation. No other model has accounted for all of these phenomena with such elegance. And yet, the Big Bang raises as many questions as it answers. If there was a beginning, What came before? If the universe emerged from a singularity, does that singularity represent creation itself, or merely the limit of our understanding? These questions hover at the edges of cosmology like shadows, always present, always unresolved. Think of it this way. When you look at the stars, you are not only seeing points of light, you are looking back through time. The Andromeda galaxy, visible as a faint smudge in the sky, shines at us from 2.5 million years ago. Quasars at the edge of the visible universe send light that began its journey billions of years before Earth formed. The farther we look, the younger the cosmos becomes, until finally we reach the wall of the microwave background, the glowing horizon of time. Beyond it, the universe is hidden, opaque, unknowable, and so the Big Bang remains both a triumph and a mystery. It gives us a beginning, but perhaps not the beginning. It paints a picture of fire, expansion, and light. But behind that picture looms the deeper question: was this truly the first chapter of the universe, or simply the first page we can still read? Take a moment to imagine yourself standing beneath the night sky. Every star above you, every galaxy beyond, carries within its light the memory of this expansion. You are not separate from this story, you are part of it. Your body, the air you breathe, the ground beneath your feet, are all forged from processes born in the aftermath of that first fire. You are, quite literally, stardust shaped into awareness, pondering its own origins. And maybe, as you breathe in and out beneath the stars, you can feel the pull of that mystery, the weight of a cosmos that began, or perhaps never did, unfolding in silence and wonder. For all its triumphs, the Big Bang Theory carries a strange silence at its core. It tells us with great precision how the universe has expanded and cooled, how galaxies and stars and planets have formed, and even how the elements themselves emerged in the first few minutes of nuclear fire. But when we ask it the most basic question of all, why there was a beginning, or what, if anything, came before the theory falls quiet. The Big Bang explains the unfolding of the cosmos once the clock is already ticking. It tells us what happens after the film has started, but it cannot show us the reel being loaded. At the very first instant, what physicists call T0, the mathematics breaks down. The equations of general relativity predict a singularity, a point of infinite density, infinite temperature, and infinite curvature of space-time. But infinity here is not a real description. It is a signal that the theory itself has reached its limit, like a map that suddenly fades to blank paper at the edge. Imagine standing at the shoreline of an ocean. You can describe the waves, the tides, the shimmer of light on the surface. But when you try to follow the sea back to its deepest source, you find your path vanishes into mist. That is what the singularity is for cosmologists, not a physical object, but a fog in which the known laws of physics dissolve. This is one of the central limits of the Big Bang model. It explains the evolution of the universe after a tiny fraction of a second, but it cannot explain the origin of that fraction itself. At times, scientists compare it to asking what lies north of the North Pole. The very concept of before may be meaningless if time itself was born with the universe. And yet, human imagination struggles to accept this. Our minds are built on stories with beginnings. When we see a river flowing, we want to trace it back to its spring. When we open a book, we assume there was a first page. And so with the universe, we crave an origin, a moment when nothing became something. But the Big Bang leaves that craving unanswered. For some, this limitation makes the model unsatisfying. It feels incomplete, like reading the middle of a novel while the first chapter is missing. For others, it is not a weakness but a challenge, an invitation to go deeper, to search for new physics that can illuminate what lies behind the singularity. Quantum mechanics, the strange and precise theory of the very small, is often invoked here. General relativity describes space and time as a smooth fabric, but at the smallest scales, quantum physics suggests that fabric is anything but smooth. It froths and trembles with uncertainty, particles popping into and out of existence in restless motion. Some theorists believe that when we apply quantum principles to the early universe, the singularity may dissolve. Instead of an infinite point, there could be a bounce, a loop, a fluctuation, something more subtle than the blunt edge of infinity. But for now, we do not know. The singularity remains a horizon we cannot yet cross. The Big Bang also leaves other mysteries unresolved. It does not explain why the universe has the laws it does, why the constants of nature seem finely tuned for stars, chemistry, and life. It does not explain the arrow of time, why the universe moves from order to disorder, from simplicity to complexity. It does not even fully explain its own fireball, for when we look closely at the cosmic microwave background, we find patterns that require additional ingredients: inflation, dark matter, dark energy. These are theories that patch holes in the narrative, but they too raise their own questions. And so the Big Bang, though powerful, is not the final word. It is a chapter, perhaps even a middle chapter in a much longer, more mysterious book. Take a moment to imagine yourself drifting back through cosmic history. Galaxies contract in reverse, stars unform, light grows bluer and denser, until all matter collapses into an opaque plasma. Keep going, and you reach that final wall, the singularity. Beyond it, nothing is visible. It is a blind spot in the story, a veil that no telescope can pierce. Now ask yourself, is that veil truly the beginning, or is it only the limit of our vision? What if time itself did not start there? What if the Big Bang was not a birth, but a transformation, the opening of one chapter in a book with no first page? There are hints, subtle and speculative, that this might be so. Some cosmologists propose that our universe is one of many in a cycle of expansion and contraction, each Big Bang followed by a big crunch and then another rebirth. Others imagine that the singularity is replaced by a bounce, where the collapse of a previous universe triggered the expansion of ours. In these models, the bang is not a creation moment, but a turning point in an endless rhythm, like the inhaling and exhaling of a cosmic breath. Perhaps, then, the question is not what came before the Big Bang, but what came before this Big Bang. And if there was one, could there be others, infinite others, stretching back through a timeless sea of beginnings? The thought is dizzying, but also strangely comforting. If the universe is eternal, then nothing is truly lost. Every atom that composes you, every star that ever shone, every galaxy that ever drifted across the void, is part of a cycle with no true end. The Big Bang becomes less a singular miracle and more a pulse in a living cosmos. Of course, these are speculations, not certainties. Science thrives not on answers alone, but on the edges of mystery. And here, at the limits of the Big Bang, mystery is abundant. When you look at the night sky tonight, remember that you are not only seeing the triumphs of science, the galaxies rushing outward, the faint afterglow of the early universe. You are also staring into the limits of knowledge, the places where questions multiply faster than answers. The singularity at T+0 is not only a scientific puzzle, it is a mirror for our own longing to understand beginnings. And maybe that longing itself tells us something important. Perhaps the universe resists our search for a first moment, because beginnings are not the deepest truth. Maybe the story of the cosmos is not linear, but cyclical, woven without start or finish, like a song without its first note. So let your thoughts drift there, to the horizon of what we know. Imagine the singularity not as a dead end, but as a doorway, leading to something older, stranger, perhaps eternal. The Big Bang is the chapter we can read. What lies before it may be chapters unwritten, or perhaps written in a language we have not yet learned to understand. long before telescopes revealed galaxies rushing outward, before physicists traced radiation back to the first fireball, people had already asked the same haunting question: does the universe have a beginning, or has it always been? And for much of human history, the answer leaned toward eternity. The idea of a cosmos without origin or end was not strange. It was natural, woven into the rhythm of night and day, the turning of the seasons, the endless return of the stars. In ancient Greece, the philosopher Aristotle argued that the universe must be eternal. To him, the idea of creation from nothing was unthinkable. Nature, he believed, does not arise from non-existence. It transforms, shifts, and cycles, but it never begins from absolute void. For Aristotle, time itself was inseparable from motion, the endless turning of the heavens, the eternal rotation of celestial spheres. If motion was eternal, so too was the universe. The cosmos, in his philosophy, was not a story with a first page, but a book that had always been open, always turning, with no author's hand needed to set it in motion. Imagine standing under the Greek sky more than 2,000 years ago. The constellations are familiar, Orion's belt glowing above, the Milky Way smeared like a river of dust across the heavens. Night after night, season after season, the patterns return. In such a sky, eternity feels self-evident. There is no sign of a beginning, no hint of an ending, only repetition, dependable and reassuring. Meanwhile, across the world, Hindu cosmology had already developed one of the most elaborate visions of an eternal cosmos. The ancient texts described the universe not as a singular event, but as a cycle, endlessly repeating through vast stretches of time. The concept of the Kalpa imagines the universe as breathing in and out, with periods of creation, preservation, and dissolution, spanning billions of years. Gods like Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva embody these cosmic functions: creation, maintenance, destruction, not as final acts, but as eternal rhythms. When the universe ends, it is not annihilation, but transformation. A new cycle begins, just as surely as dawn follows night. The scale of this vision is staggering. One day in the life of Brahma, the creator god, is said to last 4.32 billion years, roughly the age of Earth itself. A single lifetime of Brahma spans trillions of years, and yet even that vast stretch is only one cycle in an infinite unfolding. To ancient Indian thinkers, eternity was not only vast, it was structured, a great wheel turning without end. You can almost picture it, a cosmic ocean stretching beyond imagination, upon which floats the serpent Ananta, the embodiment of infinity. From its coils rises Vishnu, sustaining the cosmos, while Brahma emerges from a lotus blooming from Vishnu's navel to create yet another world. It is mythic, poetic, but also deeply philosophical, an attempt to grasp the endlessness of time in imagery that the human mind can hold. In China, Taoist philosophy offered a different but equally eternal vision. The Tao, the Way, is described as a timeless principle underlying all things. It is not born, and it does not die. It flows like water, cyclical, ungraspable, eternal. In Taoist thought, beginnings and endings are illusions created by human perspective. Just as the moon waxes and wanes, rivers swell and dry, the universe itself flows without true start or finish. The Tao always is. Close your eyes and imagine standing by a river at dusk. The water moves, always changing, but the river itself never truly begins or ends. Taoism sees the cosmos in the same way. Forms arise and fade, but the flow is eternal. These ancient traditions, though separated by vast distances and cultures, converge on a shared intuition that reality is not a story with a single origin, but a rhythm without end. And this intuition was not confined to philosophy. It lived in myth, in story, in the symbolic fabric of cultures across the globe. The Norse told of Ragnarok, a cosmic destruction that would one day end the world in fire and battle, only to be followed by renewal, with new gods, new lands, and new beginnings. The Maya spoke of successive worlds, each destroyed and remade, as if creation itself were a draft revised again and again. Indigenous traditions across the Americas, Africa, and Oceania often saw time as a great circle, not a line, ancestors living on through cycles, worlds reborn through ritual and memory. Why is eternity so appealing to human imagination? Perhaps because it mirrors the cycles we live each day. The sun sets, but it rises again. The moon vanishes into darkness, but it returns to fullness. A forest burns, but from its ashes new growth springs. To the ancient mind, eternity was not an abstraction, it was life itself, observed in every dawn, every seed, every death, followed by renewal. And in a deeper way, eternity comforts us. To imagine an eternal cosmos is to imagine that nothing is ever truly lost. The stars may fade, worlds may crumble, but the rhythm goes on. Our lives, brief as they are, become threads in a fabric that never ends. For those who feared oblivion, the eternal cosmos was not frightening but reassuring. Think of it this way: if you see life as a circle, then every ending is only a turn in the wheel. Death is not annihilation, but transformation. The universe breathes in, and it breathes out. What vanishes will return, in another form, another cycle, another dawn. And yet, eternity can also be unsettling. If the cosmos has no beginning, then the question of origin is dissolved, but so too is the sense of purpose. Where did it all come from? Nowhere, it has always been. Where is it going? Nowhere, it will always continue. To some, this is liberation. To others, it is disorienting. Eternity offers comfort, but it also strips away the neatness of a story with a beginning, middle, and end. So as you listen, let yourself rest inside these ancient visions. Imagine the wheel of Hindu cosmology, turning without end. Picture the Tao, flowing like water, never born, never dying. Stand under Aristotle's eternal heavens, where the stars turn forever without origin. In each vision, the universe is not a fleeting story but an endless rhythm, vast and strange, yet somehow deeply familiar. Perhaps this is why the idea of an eternal cosmos never fully fades, even in the age of modern science. Beneath equations and telescopes, our imaginations still circle back to eternity, as if something in us resonates with its endlessness. For most of us, time feels like the most obvious thing in the world. You wake in the morning, move through your day, watch the sun dip below the horizon, and feel the weight of another 24 hours added to the ledger of your life. Time, in this familiar sense, seems like a river always flowing forward, never doubling back. The past is gone, the present is all we hold, and the future waits somewhere up ahead, unseen. But in the early 20th century, Albert Einstein suggested something radically different. In his theory of relativity, time was no longer an independent flow. It was a dimension woven together with space into a single fabric space-time. To move through space was also to move through time. The two could not be separated. And more unsettling still, time was not absolute. It could stretch and bend, slow and quicken, depending on speed and gravity. Imagine two twins. One stays on Earth, while the other boards a spacecraft and travels near the speed of light. When the traveler returns, less time will have passed for them than for their sibling. They will be younger, while the earthbound twin will be older. Time itself, once thought to be universal, has turned out to be elastic, subjective, dependent on where you stand and how you move. From this, some philosophers and physicists began to draw an extraordinary conclusion. If time is part of space-time, And if space-time is a whole fabric, then perhaps all moments past, present, and future exist equally. Just as all places exist in space, all times exist in time. Your childhood, the moment you are living now, and the day of your death are all laid out together in a four-dimensional block. We call this the block universe. To understand it, picture a film reel. When the projector runs, frames flicker by one at a time, and to the audience, the story seems to unfold in sequence. But on the reel itself, all the frames already exist. The beginning, middle, and end are side by side, waiting. In the block universe, reality is like that reel. We experience it frame by frame, moment by moment. But in truth, every frame is already there. Nothing vanishes into the past. Nothing is yet to be created in the future. All of it simply is. It is a strange and unsettling vision. If all times exist equally, then what does it mean to say something begins or ends? A birth, a death, a star igniting, a star collapsing. All of these are just different coordinates in space-time, no more privileged than New York is compared to Paris. The flow we feel so deeply, the sense of time moving forward, could be nothing more than the way our consciousness steps from frame to frame. Take a moment to imagine yourself walking through your own life as if it were a landscape. Behind you, the valleys of childhood. Ahead, the mountains of old age. But from above, the entire path is visible at once, stretching from first step to last. You are not a traveler creating the path as you go. You are a figure already drawn into the map. This way of thinking has profound implications. If the block universe is true, then the Big Bang is not a beginning in the sense of an origin point. It is simply one part of the block, a page in the reel, a coordinate in the fabric. The idea of before the Big Bang becomes meaningless because the block contains no before or after. It simply exists, all at once, timeless in its totality. And if this is so, then perhaps the human obsession with beginnings and endings is a kind of illusion, a trick of perception. To us, life feels like a river carrying us forward. But what if we are like passengers on a train, moving through a countryside that already exists? The trees, the rivers, the towns, they are not created as we arrive. They are already there, waiting. We simply pass them in sequence. Mystical traditions across cultures have long hinted at something similar. Buddhist philosophy, for instance, speaks of the illusion of linear time, of the eternal present moment that transcends past and future. Some indigenous teachings describe time as a circle, where ancestors and descendants coexist, where memory and prophecy are woven together. Even in the West, mystics have written of visions in which all history seemed present at once, eternity folded into a single, unbroken now. Science, in its own way, is catching up to these intuitions. The block universe is not a mystical metaphor, but a direct implication of Einstein's relativity. And yet, the implications are just as staggering as any myth. Think about this. If every moment already exists, then you are immortal in a peculiar way. The moment of your birth will always exist. The laughter of your childhood will always exist. The breath you are taking now will always exist. Even your final heartbeat will always exist, though from your perspective it is yet to come. In the block, nothing is lost, nothing is erased. It is all written, forever. But this raises unsettling questions too. If the future already exists, does that mean it is fixed? Is free will an illusion? Are choices no more than scenes already filmed? Some scientists argue, yes, that the block universe is deterministic, a frozen sculpture through which we merely walk. Others argue that quantum uncertainty leaves space for openness, that even in the block, some parts remain undetermined. And beyond that lies the deeper speculation. If time is not fundamental, then perhaps beginnings and endings themselves are illusions. The Big Bang, the heat death, even our own births and deaths all may be perspectives, not absolutes. In the deepest sense, there may be no such thing as starting or finishing, only being. Pause for a moment and let that sink in. If you let go of beginnings and endings, what changes? Does it frighten you, the thought that everything simply exists without unfolding? Or does it comfort you, the thought that nothing is ever truly gone? Imagine sitting by a window, watching raindrops streak the glass. To you, the drops seem to form, move, and vanish. But in the block universe, each drop is suspended forever, its path already drawn. You experience them in sequence, but the whole rainstorm is already written. This way of thinking dissolves the fear of endings, but also the comfort of progress. If time is an illusion, then history is not a story but a sculpture, already complete. We live inside it, unable to see the whole, convinced of motion where there is only form. And maybe, just maybe, this is what eternity really means. Not endless duration, but timelessness. A universe that does not begin or end, but simply is, all at once, a whole too vast for us to see. So the next time you feel the rush of time, the years piling up, the moments slipping away, remember that there are other ways to imagine it. Perhaps you are not being carried forward at all. Perhaps you are already everywhere you have ever been, and everywhere you will ever go, resting quietly in a block of existence that does not flow, but simply shines. When you think of the universe, it's easy to imagine it as a single story, a beginning in fire, an expansion through billions of years, and an ending, perhaps a slow heat death or a sudden collapse, a line, straight and unbroken, from origin to conclusion. But there is another way to imagine it, one that runs far deeper into human thought and lingers in both science and myth. It is the idea of a cosmos not written as a line, but as a circle. A universe that does not begin once and end once, but rises and falls in endless repetition. In modern physics, this is called the oscillating universe. The picture is simple in outline, but profound in implication. Our cosmos, expanding now, might one day slow, halt, and reverse. Galaxies would cease their outward flight and begin to fall back inward. Stars would collapse toward one another, clusters drawing tight, until eventually the whole universe folded into itself in a catastrophic implosion, a big crunch. Yet that collapse, rather than being a final silence, might ignite a new beginning. Out of the death of one universe, a new Big Bang could arise, expanding again, writing another chapter. Expansion, contraction, rebirth, not once, but forever. Imagine breathing. Your chest rises, air filling your lungs. Then it falls, air released. In and out, over and over, each breath distinct yet part of the same life. In the oscillating universe, reality itself breathes this way. Each Big Bang is an inhale, each big crunch an exhale, the cosmos alive in its rhythm. This idea is not new. In fact, it echoes some of humanity's oldest cosmological traditions. Hindu philosophy, for instance, has long described time not as a line but as a wheel. The kalpa, a unit of cosmic time, stretches across billions of years, during which the universe is created, sustained, and ultimately destroyed, only to be created again. The gods themselves are part of this rhythm. Brahma creates, Vishnu preserves, Shiva dissolves, and then the cycle begins anew. The numbers are staggering. One day of Brahma is said to last 4.32 billion years, nearly the age of Earth itself. A full lifetime of Brahma spans 311 trillion years. And yet even that is not an ending, for when Brahma's life is complete, another Brahma arises, and the cycle turns again. To the ancient Indian mind, eternity was not an endless straight road, but a wheel turning without end. You can almost see it, the cosmos, as a great wheel, turning in slow majesty, each revolution birthing suns and worlds, then swallowing them back into silence. To live within such a cosmos is to live inside a story that never ends, only changes form. Your life, your civilization, even your universe, is but a spark in one breath of an eternal being. The Taoist vision of harmony echoes this too. In Taoist thought, opposites rise and fall in balance, light and dark, life and death, creation and destruction. The Tao flows in cycles, not in lines. The oscillating cosmos fits seamlessly into this rhythm. Expansion followed by collapse, collapse followed by expansion. Each opposite giving birth to the other, yin giving rise to yang, yang giving rise to yin. Even in the West, traces of cyclic thought can be found. The Stoics of ancient Greece believed in ekpyrosis, a cosmic fire that consumed the universe in intervals, only for it to be reborn anew. To them, history itself repeated, worlds unfolding again and again in identical form. You may have lived this life before, and you may live it again, in a cycle without beginning or end. Why is this idea so persistent? Perhaps because cycles are the rhythm of our own existence. Day turns to night, night to day. Seasons bloom and fade, then bloom again. Generations rise and fall, yet life continues. To imagine the cosmos as cyclical is to project the deepest patterns of our own lives onto the stars. The eternal return feels natural because it is what we already know. Now let's return to modern physics. For much of the 20th century, the oscillating universe seemed like a serious contender. If the density of matter in the cosmos were great enough, gravity might slow expansion and eventually reverse it. The universe would collapse, crunch, and then bang anew. But observations in the late 1990s revealed something startling. The universe's expansion is not slowing, it is accelerating. Driven by a mysterious force called dark energy, galaxies are flying apart faster and faster, as if pushed by some invisible hand. This makes a future big crunch less likely, for acceleration suggests eternal expansion, not collapse. And yet, some theorists still find ways for cycles to return. They imagine that dark energy itself might change, switch signs, or dissolve, allowing contraction to follow expansion. Others explore quantum cosmology, where singularities vanish, replaced by bounces, one universe contracting into another's birth. In these models, time may stretch backward not just 13.8 billion years, but infinitely, each Big Bang the child of a big crunch, each universe the descendant of another. Think of it this way: if our universe is one breath, how many breaths has the cosmos already taken? 100, 1,000, an infinity beyond comprehension. And if so, what does it mean for us to exist not in the first universe, nor the last, but in one of countless cycles? Some even speculate that traces of previous universes might linger in ours. Patterns in the cosmic microwave background, hints in the distribution of galaxies, could be echoes from cycles before our own. The evidence is uncertain, the debate ongoing, but the idea is tantalizing, that our universe carries scars of earlier incarnations, fossils from before the last bang. Let yourself imagine it. Beyond our visible cosmos, hidden beyond the horizon of time, lie the ashes of earlier universes. Entire galaxies, civilizations, perhaps even beings like us born, lived, wondered, and perished, all swept away in a cosmic exhale. And yet from those ashes, our own universe rose, breathing in once more. The cyclic cosmos also reshapes how we think of meaning. In a linear universe, beginnings and endings frame the story. There is creation, history, and eventual silence. But in a cyclic universe, there is no final end, no ultimate beginning. There is only rhythm, transformation, return. What matters then is not reaching an end, but participating in the cycle. Your life is a note in a symphony that never stops, only changes melody. Some find this vision liberating. If nothing is ever final, then despair loses its sting. Every collapse gives rise to renewal. Death is not absolute, but part of the rhythm. Others find it daunting. If everything repeats, does anything truly matter? Are we condemned to live the same stories forever, unable to escape the wheel? The Hindu tradition offers one answer. Even though the cosmos cycles endlessly, liberation moksha is possible. One can awaken from the wheel, transcend the endless births and deaths, and rest in the eternal beyond. In this way, the cycle is not a prison, but a path. The wheel turns until we learn to step beyond it. Perhaps the same could be said of the oscillating cosmos. Maybe the cycles are not traps, but opportunities, each universe a canvas, each cycle a chance for consciousness to glimpse its own nature. Think of yourself again beneath the stars. The galaxies above you are drifting outward now, but imagine them slowing, reversing, falling back toward one another. Millions of years from now, the night sky would blaze with merging galaxies, stars colliding in brilliant bursts. Then, darkness, collapse, a universe folding into fire. But from that fire, a new dawn, a new sky, a new scattering of stars. Somewhere in that next cycle, new beings might stand under their own night sky, asking the same questions we ask now. And maybe, just maybe, those questions echo across cycles. Perhaps wonder itself is eternal, each universe producing minds that gaze upward and ask, what is all this, and where did it come from? It is a thought both humbling and beautiful. In a cyclic cosmos, we are not the first to wonder, nor the last. Our questions are part of the rhythm, like the beating of a heart, the rising of breath, the turning of a wheel. So perhaps eternity is not a line stretching forever, but a circle turning without end. A cosmos that does not begin or end, but breathes. In and out, light and dark, creation and dissolution, forever. If the oscillating universe imagines a cosmos breathing in and out, then the Big Bounce takes that breath and roots it in the language of modern physics. Where older cyclic models relied on gravity alone to pull the universe back together, the Big Bounce arises from the frontier where relativity meets quantum mechanics, the place where space-time itself quivers with uncertainty. Here, collapse may not be the end. It may be the beginning of something new. To understand this, we must return to the singularity at the heart of the Big Bang. In classical general relativity, tracing time backward leads us to an infinite density, an impossible state where physics dissolves into paradox. But many physicists suspect that quantum effects, the jitter and fuzz of the subatomic world, may prevent that singularity from ever forming. Instead of ending in an impossible infinity, the universe might reach a smallest possible size, a minimum point where collapse halts and reverses. That reversal is the bounce. Imagine holding a ball in your hand and dropping it. Gravity pulls it downward until it hits the ground. At that moment, the motion reverses, the ball rebounds, springing upward. The Big Bounce proposes something similar on a cosmic scale. The universe collapses under its own gravity until quantum effects act as the floor, preventing further compression. Then, like a ball rebounding, space itself expands outward again. What we call the Big Bang would then not be the first explosion, but the rebound of a prior collapse. Loop quantum gravity, a modern attempt to unite Einstein's relativity with quantum mechanics, gives mathematical weight to this idea. In this framework, space-time is not continuous but granular, woven of tiny loops of energy. Just as matter cannot be divided infinitely, atoms give way to subatomic particles, then to quarks, space and time may have a fundamental grain, a smallest scale beyond which they cannot be crushed. When the universe contracts to this limit, instead of collapsing into a singularity, it bounces. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine that rebound. Galaxies, after eons of falling together, press into a furnace of unimaginable density. Stars unravel, black holes dissolve, time itself tightens like a drawn bowstring, then release. Expansion surges outward, not from nothing, but from everything compressed. Space blooms again, galaxies form again, stars ignite again. To live in such a cosmos is to live in one breath of an infinite cycle of collapse and rebirth. This idea has tantalizing implications. If the Big Bang was a bounce, then perhaps our universe carries traces of its predecessor. Some cosmologists search the cosmic microwave background, that ancient afterglow of light, for patterns that might be scars of earlier cycles. Subtle asymmetries, rings, or imprints could be the echoes of universes that collapsed before ours. The evidence so far is ambiguous, but the search continues, driven by the possibility that our cosmos may not be the first nor the only. And if this is true, then eternity takes on a new face. We are not drifting in a universe born once from nothing. We are part of an eternal sequence, each universe giving way to the next in an endless rhythm. The Big Bang becomes a chapter heading, not the opening line. There is a haunting beauty in this vision. It suggests that everything we see, the galaxies, the stars, even ourselves, may have existed before in some other form, and may exist again, reborn after collapse. Perhaps history does not only repeat in myth, but in physics itself. Take a moment to imagine that. Imagine that before this universe, there was another, with its own galaxies, its own stars, perhaps even its own beings gazing at their night skies. When their universe collapsed, when their stars died and their galaxies folded inward, everything they were became part of the seed of our cosmos. In a sense, we are their legacy, their continuation. And one day, when our universe collapses, we too may give birth to another, a future cosmos seeded by the ashes of our own. In Hindu cosmology, this rhythm echoes the dance of Shiva, who destroys the universe not as cruelty, but as preparation for renewal. Destruction is not the end. It is the soil for creation. The Big Bounce carries this same spirit. Collapse is not annihilation. It is transformation. The exhale is always followed by the inhale. But the Big Bounce also raises difficult questions. If cycles are endless, what becomes of entropy, the slow drift toward disorder, the increase of chaos that the second law of thermodynamics demands? In a universe that only expands once, entropy leads to heat death, a final state of cold uniformity where no structure remains. In a cyclic universe, entropy seems to build with each cycle, raising the question of how rebirth could occur at all. Some physicists speculate that entropy might reset at the bounce, wiped clean by quantum effects. Others suggest that new universes may be born with fresh conditions, unburdened by the past. If so, each bounce is not only a continuation but a renewal, the cosmos starting fresh each time, with new possibilities, new histories, new forms of life. Speculation carries us further still. If the universe bounces endlessly, does it repeat exactly, or does it vary? Are we living a life that has happened before, identical in every detail, or are we one version among countless variations? Perhaps in one cycle you exist, in another you do not. Perhaps civilizations rise in one universe and fall in another. The wheel may repeat, but the patterns it paints may always be new. Consider how this changes the meaning of your own life. If there are infinite cycles, then your existence is both fleeting and eternal. You may vanish with this universe, but in another, you may rise again in some form. Your choices, your thoughts, your loves may echo in ways you cannot imagine, reverberating through cycles beyond number. Some find this vision disorienting, others find it liberating. To know that nothing is final, that collapse is not silence but renewal, is to live in a cosmos where endings are illusions. Every fall is a preparation for flight. Every night is the seed of dawn. The Big Bounce also dissolves the question of ultimate origin. If the universe has always bounced, then there was never a first beginning. The question, why is there something rather than nothing, shifts into, why does the cycle exist? And perhaps the answer is simply that it always has, and always will, a rhythm without composer, a dance without start. Picture yourself lying under the night sky, stars above like scattered embers. Beyond those stars lies a universe expanding. Beyond that expansion lies a future collapse. Beyond that collapse lies another expansion, another scattering of stars. In this vision, you are not at the center of time, nor at its end. You are inside a breath of eternity, a note in a song that has no first or last measure. The Big Bounce is still speculative, unproven. Evidence may or may not confirm it, but the idea carries us beyond the fear of endings. It whispers that collapse is not death, but a doorway. That the silence after the last star fades may not be silence at all, but the hush before another song begins. And perhaps that is why the Big Bounce resonates so deeply, even beyond science. It echoes our own lives, where loss often carries the seeds of renewal, where endings are often beginnings in disguise, where every breath out is followed by a breath in. So let your thoughts drift into that rhythm. Expansion and collapse, birth and death, bang and bounce. And imagine that we are not living in the only universe, nor the first, nor the last, but in one cycle among infinite cycles, each rebounding into the next. And if that is true, then eternity is not an empty stretch of time. It is a heartbeat, a rhythm, a cosmos forever renewing itself. And we, fragile sparks of awareness, are part of that rhythm, fleeting, yes, but also eternal. When scientists in the early 20th century first wrestled with the idea of an expanding universe, not everyone was ready to embrace the notion of a beginning. The Big Bang, with its fiery instant of creation, carried unsettling echoes of myth, of Genesis, of something springing out of nothing. For some, it felt too abrupt, too finite, too much like a story told by religion rather than by nature. And so, in the 1940s, another vision arose, one that promised eternity without origin, continuity without collapse. It was called the steady-state theory. The idea was simple, yet daring. If the universe is expanding, galaxies rushing away from one another, then new space is constantly being created. But instead of that expansion leading back to a singular beginning, what if matter itself is continuously formed to fill the gaps? In this view, hydrogen atoms, the raw material of stars, would pop into existence here and there, just enough to keep the average density of the universe the same. Expansion would continue, galaxies would still spread apart, but the overall universe would remain unchanged on the grandest scales. No beginning, no end, always the same. Fred Hoyle, one of the most outspoken champions of this model, found it elegant. He disliked the Big Bang's implication of creation, which to him smacked of theology. The steady state, by contrast, offered a universe with no need for divine spark or singular origin. It was eternal, self-sustaining, endlessly renewing itself through the quiet birth of new matter. Hoyle often spoke of it almost with affection, as if the cosmos in this model were a trusted friend, stable, reliable, never vanishing into silence. Imagine for a moment what it would feel like to live in such a universe. You look into the night sky, and though galaxies drift farther away, the overall tapestry remains unchanged. Stars burn out, but new stars form. Civilizations rise and fall, but the cosmos itself continues in balance. There was no moment of creation to precede you, and there will be no final darkness to follow. The universe simply is, eternal and unbroken. This vision resonated with something deep in the human psyche. We long for permanence, for a backdrop that does not shift beneath our feet. In a world where everything we know changes seasons, lives, empires, the idea of an unchanging cosmos was soothing. It was a sky that never closed, a stage that never dimmed. For Hoyle and others, the steady state was not just a scientific theory, but a kind of philosophical anchor, and for a time, it seemed plausible. Observations showed the universe expanding, yes, but could not yet prove a hot, dense origin. The cosmic microwave background had not yet been discovered. The steady state explained what was known, and it offered a vision of eternity that harmonized with both reason and longing. Picture yourself standing in that era, before the decisive evidence. Scientists debate in lecture halls, chalk squeaking across blackboards. One side imagines a cosmos born in fire, finite and perhaps fragile. The other sees an eternal cosmos, never born, never ending, always renewing itself in subtle ways. Which vision would you find more comforting? Which would feel more like the universe you wanted to believe in? The steady state also carried mythic resonance. In many traditions, the cosmos is eternal, unchanging in essence, even as forms arise and fade. The Hindu kalpas, the Taoist flow, Aristotle's eternal spheres all echo with this sense of constancy. The steady state translated that intuition into scientific language. It said, "The universe has always existed, and it always will. No sudden creation, no catastrophic end, just an eternal present." But science is not judged by comfort. It is judged by evidence. And in 1965, evidence arrived that shook the steady state to its core. That year, Arno Penzias and Robert Wilson detected the faint hiss of the cosmic microwave background. This radiation, uniform across the sky, was exactly what the Big Bang had predicted, the cooled echo of an early fireball. The steady state, which posited no such beginning, could not explain it. The discovery was a death knell. Slowly, reluctantly, most scientists turned away from Hoyle's vision. The Big Bang rose to dominance, not because it was more poetic, but because it fit the fact. Even so, the steady state lingers in memory. It is a reminder that science, too, is shaped by human hopes and fears. Hoyle's model was elegant, even beautiful. It captured the longing for eternity in a way that the violent birth of the Big Bang could not. And though it was abandoned, it remains part of the story of how we imagine the cosmos. There is something poignant in this. The steady state was a dream of permanence, a universe that never had to face death. To let it go was to accept a cosmos that might truly have begun and might one day truly end. For some, that acceptance deepened the mystery. For others, it sharpened the ache of mortality, both cosmic and human. But perhaps we can honor the steady state for what it was, a bridge between myth and science, an attempt to articulate in equations what cultures had long whispered in stories, an eternal cosmos, unchanging at its deepest level, forever renewing itself. Even if evidence has led us elsewhere, the dream itself still has power. And who is to say it is entirely gone? In the multiverse theories of today, in the visions of eternal inflation, in the whispers of quantum eternity, the spirit of the steady state still flickers. Perhaps the universe does not look like Hoyle imagined, but perhaps it is eternal after all, in ways stranger than he dreamed. So, as you rest beneath the stars tonight, imagine that steady vision, galaxies drifting, yet the whole never changing. A cosmos without beginning, without end, always present, always whole. A universe not rushing toward silence, but settled in eternity. In the late 20th century, cosmology unveiled a new chapter in its story of beginnings, one that at first seemed to reinforce the Big Bang. but soon unfolded into something far stranger, something that dissolves the very idea of a beginning at all. This is the theory of eternal inflation. To understand it, we must first look at cosmic inflation itself. In the early 1980s, physicist Alan Guth proposed that the universe, in its first trillionth of a second, expanded at a rate so fast it defies ordinary comprehension. Imagine a single speck swelling to cosmic size almost instantly, space itself stretching faster than the speed of light, smoothing out wrinkles and scattering matter into the seeds of galaxies. This brief period of inflation explained puzzles that had nagged at the Big Bang: why the universe looks so uniform on large scales, why it appears flat, why distant regions that should never have been in contact look so similar. Inflation worked. It explained what we saw, but it carried an extraordinary consequence. Once inflation begins, it does not necessarily end everywhere. In some regions, it halts, giving birth to a universe like ours. In others, it continues, space ballooning ever outward, creating more and more pocket universes in the process. Like bubbles forming in a boiling pot, universes sprout endlessly from an inflating background. This is eternal inflation. Picture a vast cosmic sea, roiling and frothing with bubbles. Each bubble is a universe, with its own stars, galaxies, and laws of physics. Some bubbles expand like ours, forming galaxies of light. Others may fizzle out, never forming structure at all. Still others may host laws of nature so different that matter itself cannot exist in familiar form. And the sea itself, the inflating background, never ends. It continues to swell, spawning bubble after bubble without limit. In this vision, our universe is not the universe. It is one bubble among countless others, drifting in an eternal froth. Take a moment to let that image settle. The night sky above you, the galaxies stretching beyond imagination, the entire history of Earth and life, all of it is one bubble. Around it, beyond it, invisible to us, countless other bubbles expand, each carrying its own version of reality. Some may be barren, some may blaze with life, some may shimmer with laws of physics so alien we cannot conceive them. And all the while, new bubbles are born, endlessly, without pause. This means that in the eternal inflation model, the universe has no beginning in any traditional sense. Inflation did not start once. It is always starting, always generating, always inflating. There was no first bubble, no first bang. The process is infinite in both directions. For some, this vision is exhilarating. It dissolves the fear of finality. The cosmos is not a fragile singular event, but a frothing infinity. For others, it is overwhelming. If there are infinite universes, where does that leave us? Are we significant? Or just one bubble among countless trillions? A momentary foam in an eternal sea? Ancient myth seems to echo here. Many cultures spoke of creation as arising from a cosmic ocean, an endless expanse of water, from which land or light or gods emerged. The Babylonians told of Tiamat, the primordial sea, from whose chaos the ordered world was born. Hindu cosmology speaks of Vishnu floating on the endless ocean, from whose navel blooms the lotus of creation. Even in Genesis, the Spirit of God moves upon the face of the waters. Eternal inflation feels like a modern reflection of those myths, a cosmic ocean, not of water, but of space-time, bubbling endlessly with universes. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of this sea. Before you, universes rise and fall like waves, each sealed in its own bubble, each unaware of the others. You cannot cross from one to another. Each is its own self-contained cosmos. And yet, the sea continues, vast and eternal, always birthing more. In such a model, questions of beginnings and endings lose their grip. There is no first universe. There is no final collapse. Inflation is eternal, and the multiverse it creates is endless. Some physicists suggest we may even glimpse evidence of this. If our bubble universe has ever brushed against another, the collision might leave scars in the cosmic microwave background, faint circles, patterns, or anomalies. The evidence so far is uncertain, but the search continues. For if such scars were found, it would mean we are not alone. Our bubble has neighbors, unseen but real. Speculation stretches further still. In an infinite froth of universes, everything that can happen will happen infinitely many times. There may be countless versions of you, in countless bubbles, living variations of your life. Some are familiar, some utterly strange. One universe where you never existed, another where your choices diverged in subtle or dramatic ways. In eternal inflation, possibility is inexhaustible. What does that mean for meaning itself? If infinite versions of everything exist, does that make any one version less significant? Or does it mean that existence itself, this moment, your awareness right now, is precious precisely because it shines in the endless sea? Pause here and feel the paradox. You are small, one life in one bubble among infinite bubbles, and yet you are also vast, for your existence is part of a process that has no beginning and no end. You are not separate from eternity, you are woven into it. Fred Hoyle's steady-state model imagined eternity as constancy, an unchanging backdrop. Eternal inflation imagines eternity as motion, a frothing without end. Two visions of forever, one steady, one chaotic, yet both whisper the same truth. Beginnings may be illusions, endings may be mirages. Imagine the cosmos as a pot forever boiling, bubbles forever forming and rising. To live in such a universe is to live not at the beginning, not at the end, but in the midst of endless creation. Eternal inflation also shifts the question of, why is there something rather than nothing? In this vision, nothing is unstable. Left to itself, space inflates, spawning universes. Existence is not the exception, but the rule. The question dissolves, because in eternal inflation, universes are as natural as bubbles in boiling water. There is a dreamlike quality to this vision. When you look at the stars, you are not only seeing your own bubble, you are seeing one glimmer in an ocean beyond sight. The night sky becomes a window not just to your universe's history, but to the idea of infinite histories, infinite skies, infinite questions. So perhaps eternity is not silence, not stasis, but endless creation. Inflation that never ends, universes without number, a sea without shore. And perhaps that is why this theory resonates, even beyond physics. It speaks to something deep in us, the sense that reality cannot be contained by a single story, that it must spill over, multiply, overflow. We dream of other worlds because perhaps the cosmos itself dreams in bubbles, birthing universes without end. Take a breath. Let yourself imagine the infinite sea. See the bubbles rise and shimmer, universes birthing and vanishing, each a cosmos entire. Then remember, you are in one of those bubbles. Your life, your history, your earth is the surface of this bubble, floating in eternity. And in this model, there is no first bubble, no last, only the endless froth, only eternal inflation. If eternal inflation paints the cosmos as a sea of bubbles, quantum physics adds a stranger twist. The possibility that reality itself never needed to begin at all, because at its deepest level, fluctuation is eternal. In quantum theory, emptiness is never truly empty. What we call the vacuum, the space between galaxies, the silence between atoms, is alive with activity. Particles and antiparticles flicker into existence, then vanish again, borrowing energy from nothingness for the briefest of instants before dissolving. This dance is constant, unstoppable, woven into the very fabric of space-time. Even in perfect darkness, the vacuum hums. Physicists call this restless hum vacuum energy, and it may be one of the deepest truths of the universe. If emptiness is never still, then perhaps creation itself is not a one-time event, but a perpetual possibility. The universe may not have sprung from a singular origin. It may be the natural blossoming of fluctuations that have no beginning, no end. Take a moment to imagine this. Close your eyes and picture not galaxies or stars, but a vast blackness, absolute void. Then, in that void, a shimmer, a spark, tiny particles bubbling into being, vanishing, replaced by others. A foam of existence, arising not from something, but from nothing, or rather, from the quantum rules that make nothing impossible. From this restless foam, entire universes could emerge. Some theories suggest that the Big Bang itself was just such a fluctuation, a surge in the vacuum that blossomed into space, time, and matter. If so, then our universe is not unique, nor even unusual. It is one wave in an endless ocean of quantum fluctuation. And here lies the idea of quantum eternity. If the vacuum is eternal, if fluctuation never ceases, then there was never a first fluctuation. There was no moment when the hum began. It simply always is and always will be. Creation, in this view, is not an event, but a condition, the natural state of reality. This vision reshapes how we think of time. In our everyday lives, time feels fundamental. The past lies behind us, the future ahead. But quantum cosmology suggests something more radical. Perhaps time itself is not a basic ingredient. Perhaps it is emergent, like temperature or pressure, arising only when certain conditions are met. Imagine water. At the level of individual molecules, there is no temperature. A single molecule has motion, energy, momentum, but temperature only appears when countless molecules interact. It is an emergent property of many acting together. In the same way, time may not exist at the most fundamental level. It may emerge only when the quantum foam gives rise to structure, when fluctuations congeal into universes where events can be counted, where sequences can unfold. If that is so, then asking, when did the universe begin, may be like asking, when did temperature begin? It is the wrong kind of question. Time, as we know it, might not apply to the quantum eternity beneath. Consider the block universe we explored earlier, where past, present, and future exist all at once. Quantum eternity takes this further. It whispers that even the block itself may not be the ultimate reality. Beneath the block, beneath the flow, beneath beginnings and endings, lies a timeless hum, a sea of fluctuation that simply exists. What does it mean to live in such a cosmos? Perhaps it means that existence is not contingent on an origin. You do not need a first cause, a spark from outside. Reality itself, by its nature, cannot help but create. It is like music, not a note played once, but a melody always playing, endlessly varied, never starting, never ending. Pause here and imagine yourself as part of that music. Your body, your thoughts, your awareness are not accidents in a cold void. They are ripples in a sea that has no beginning, no end. You are a verse in an eternal song, a fluctuation that became conscious of itself. Quantum eternity also shifts the way we think about nothingness. We often imagine nothing as an empty void, a blank silence. But in physics, nothing is unstable. The vacuum, left to itself, vibrates with potential. It is restless, fertile, incapable of stillness. Nothing, it seems, is always on the verge of something. This echoes ancient intuitions. The Taoists spoke of the Tao giving birth to the 10,000 things, arising not from a creator, but from the way itself. Hindu cosmology describes Brahman, the ultimate reality, as both emptiness and fullness, from which the cycles of creation flow. Even mystics in the West have described the void as pregnant with being. Quantum physics, in its own language, tells a similar story. Nothing is not nothing. It is possibility. Some physicists go further, suggesting that universes may continuously bud from this vacuum sea. Ours is one, but there may be countless others, forming and dissolving, all born from the same quantum hum. In this vision, creation is not a rare event, but an eternal process. And if time is emergent, then eternity is not endless duration but timeless presence. The vacuum does not age. It does not change in the way we think of change. It simply exists, eternally fluctuating, eternally alive. This can be difficult to grasp. We are creatures of time, anchored to past and future, bound by clocks and calendars. To imagine timelessness is to step outside the very medium of our thoughts. But perhaps you can glimpse it in stillness. Imagine sitting quietly, breath slow, eyes closed. For a moment, the rush of time seems to soften. The future and past blur, and only the present remains. In that present, timelessness whispers. Perhaps that is the closest we can come to quantum eternity, a recognition that beneath all motion, all sequence, there is something deeper, a hum that has always been and always will be. What does this mean for the Big Bang? In one sense, it explains it away. The bang was not a beginning but a fluctuation, one among endless fluctuations. Our universe arose, expanded, grew, but it was not the first and will not be the last. The quantum sea continues, birthing new universes without end. For some, this is unsettling. It strips away the drama of a singular creation. For others, it is profoundly comforting. It means that existence is natural, inevitable, eternal. There was never nothing, only fluctuation. Never silence, only music. And perhaps this is why the idea of quantum eternity resonates beyond physics. It speaks to something deep in us, the sense that reality cannot come from nowhere, that existence must be woven into the fabric of things. Quantum fluctuation offers that, a cosmos that exists because it cannot not exist, a reality that is eternal by its nature. As you think about this, imagine the vacuum not as empty, but as luminous with possibility. Every star, every planet, every life is a ripple from that sea, and the sea itself never dries. It has no first wave, no last wave, it simply is. So when you wonder about the beginning, remember that the very concept of beginning may be the illusion. Time itself may be the shadow, not the source. The source is timeless, eternal, humming beneath all things. Quantum eternity. In the standard Big Bang picture, the universe emerges from a singularity, an infinitely dense point where space, time, and the laws of physics themselves collapse. But physicists have long suspected that this cannot be the whole story. Infinity, in science, is often a sign not of truth but of breakdown, a flashing warning light that says, our equations no longer apply here. If reality is to be understood more deeply, the singularity must be resolved, replaced by something else. One of the most promising attempts to do this is loop quantum gravity, a theory that seeks to weave together the two great frameworks of modern physics. General relativity, which describes the curvature of space-time, and quantum mechanics, which governs the microscopic world. Instead of treating space and time as smooth and continuous, loop quantum gravity imagines them as granular, composed of discrete atoms of space. These atoms are unimaginably small, far smaller than protons or quarks, but together they form the fabric of the cosmos. In this view, space is not a seamless canvas but a woven tapestry, each thread a quantum loop. And just as a tapestry cannot be compressed beyond the threads that make it up, space-time cannot collapse into a singularity. Instead, when squeezed to its limit, it resists further compression. The universe, rather than crumpling into an infinite point, rebounds. This leads naturally to the idea of a quantum loop universe. Instead of beginning at a singularity, the cosmos cycles through expansions and contractions, each bounce replacing what classical physics would call the Big Bang. The beginning is no longer a mysterious explosion from nothing. It is a transition, one loop giving way to another. Imagine a pendulum swinging. It moves outward, slows, then swings back. At the turning point, motion reverses, but there is no singularity, no infinite compression. The Big Bang, in loop quantum gravity, is such a turning point, the moment when contraction gives way to expansion. And in this model, the process may continue forever, each universe giving way to the next, loop after loop. Pause for a moment and picture it. The galaxies we see today drifting outward in expansion. In the far future, perhaps gravity or other forces slow that expansion, pulling everything back together. Stars collapse, black holes merge, space itself shrinks. But before everything vanishes into an impossible singularity, the quantum loops resist, halting the collapse. Then, the universe bounces, expanding anew, galaxies scattering once again, over and over, endlessly. In such a cosmos, the question of a first beginning evaporates. There was no first bounce, only bounces without end. Existence becomes a circle, not a line. But loop quantum gravity carries a deeper implication still. If space and time are made of quantum loops, then perhaps time itself is not fundamental. In some formulations of the theory, the equations describing the universe contain no time variable at all. The loops evolve in relation to one another, but not in a sequence we would call before and after. Time, as we experience it, emerges only when certain conditions give rise to a sense of flow. Beneath that flow, reality is timeless. This is a difficult idea to hold. We are beings of time, our very consciousness shaped by its passage. We remember the past, we anticipate the future. But imagine, if you can, a reality where all loops simply exist, interwoven in a timeless fabric. The universe is not moving through time. It is a pattern, complete in itself. The flow we feel is our way of experiencing the pattern, not the pattern itself. Some philosophers describe this as a self-contained loop of existence. The universe does not begin, does not end, but exists as a whole, complete and eternal. To ask what came before is to misunderstand, for there is no before. To ask what comes after is equally misplaced, for there is no after. There is only the loop, the totality, complete unto itself. This resonates with ancient visions. In Hindu thought, the universe is often described as cyclical, with endless kalpas rising and falling. In Taoist philosophy, opposites transform into one another in an eternal dance. Even in Western mysticism, there are whispers of eternity, not as infinite duration, but as completeness, a circle rather than a line. Think of a mandala, the intricate circular designs used in meditation across cultures. Each mandala is self-contained, its symmetry radiating from the center, its meaning found not in linear progress but in wholeness. The universe, in loop quantum gravity, may be such a mandala, a cosmic pattern existing outside of time, complete in its loops. Now imagine yourself inside such a universe. You live your life as a sequence: birth, growth, aging, death. You experience time as flow, but beneath that flow lies the loop, timeless, complete. Your life, your world, your cosmos are not unfolding but already woven into the whole. You are a thread in the tapestry, already part of the eternal pattern. Speculation stretches further. If the universe is a loop, might existence itself loop as well? Could consciousness, too, recur, not through reincarnation in the mystical sense, but through the self-contained completeness of the cosmos? In some interpretations, every moment that has ever existed will always exist. every loop of expansion and contraction, holding within it the same totality. You are not moving forward through time, you are part of a loop that simply is. This may feel disorienting, even vertiginous. To live in a linear universe is to expect endings and beginnings, to build meaning on the framework of narrative. To live in a looped universe is to accept that the story is already whole, already eternal. Meaning, then, comes not from progress but from presence, from recognizing that you are already inside eternity. Loop quantum gravity is still a work in progress. It is not yet confirmed, not yet tested in the way other theories are. But its implications are profound. It offers a universe without singularities, without arbitrary beginnings, without the need for an external cause. A universe that is timeless, self-contained, looping eternally in patterns too vast for us to see. And perhaps this vision is not so alien after all. Think of your own breath. Inhale, exhale, inhale again. Think of your heartbeat, pulsing rhythmically in your chest. Think of the seasons, circling year after year. Think of the wheel of day and night, turning endlessly. Loops are the rhythm of life, the pulse of nature. Why not also the rhythm of the cosmos itself? As you sit beneath the stars, imagine that each point of light is part of such a loop. The galaxies expand now, but one day they may contract, only to expand again. You are not witnessing a fragile, finite moment, but a breath in an eternal cycle, a thread in a timeless pattern. The loop holds you, just as it holds all things. And so perhaps eternity is not a line stretching into the unknown, nor an endless froth of universes bubbling without pause, but a loop complete, whole, self-contained. A universe that needs no outside, no before or after, because it is already all that is. The universe is vast, alive with light, motion and structure. Stars burn with nuclear fire. Galaxies spiral and collide. Black holes consume and shape their surroundings. And here, on one fragile world, life stirs, grows, and wonders. To us, the cosmos feels alive, dynamic, unfolding, filled with stories. Yet there is a law, written into the very fabric of physics, that whispers a different ending. It is the second law of thermodynamics, and it carries with it a vision known as the heat death of the universe. This vision is not of fiery collapse or violent destruction. It is quieter, slower, more inexorable. It imagines a universe that does not end with an explosion, but with exhaustion. A cosmos that fades not in drama, but in silence. The law of entropy. Entropy is the measure of disorder, the tendency for systems to move from concentrated order into diffuse uniformity. It is the reason a cup of coffee cools in a room, heat dispersing into the air until balance is reached. It is why ink dropped in water spreads evenly, never spontaneously returning to its drop. It is why broken glass never leaps back together, why smoke never returns to the match that burned. In simple terms, entropy always increases. Order becomes disorder. Energy spreads out. The second law of thermodynamics is not just a rule for engines or laboratories, it is a law for the cosmos itself. Imagine a pristine deck of cards, arranged in perfect sequence. Shuffle it once, and the order is lost. Shuffle it 1,000 times, and the disorder grows deeper. The second law tells us that the universe, too, is being shuffled. Every star that burns, every process that unfolds, adds to the overall disorder, spreading energy thinner, scattering structure wider. Entropy is, in many ways, the arrow of time. It is why the past feels distinct from the future. The past held more order, the future will hold more disorder. This is why we remember yesterday but not tomorrow, why our lives feel like a flow in one direction. Without entropy, time itself might be meaningless. Entropy on a cosmic scale. Now stretch this law across the universe. Stars, those brilliant engines of order, burn their fuel and release heat into space. Galaxies, massive structures held by gravity, eventually scatter as expansion stretches them apart. Black holes, though mighty, also radiate faint energy through what we call Hawking radiation, slowly evaporating. Every process adds to the great drift toward equilibrium, a state where no gradients remain, no differences in temperature or energy exist to drive processes forward. This final equilibrium is the heat death, a universe at maximum entropy. Nothing more can happen, because everything has already spread evenly. There is no hot and cold, no here and there, no potential for work, no spark of motion left. The cosmos is not annihilated, it still exists, but it is drained of story, reduced to uniform stillness. A sky without stars. Take a moment and imagine what this means for the night sky. Right now, you look up and see rivers of starlight, galaxies glowing like islands across the dark. But those stars are temporary. In billions of years, they will burn out. Some will explode in supernovae, scattering elements into space. Others will collapse into white dwarfs or neutron stars, glowing faintly for eons before cooling into darkness. Trillions of years from now, no new stars will form. The galaxies will drift apart into the silence of expansion. The sky will grow emptier, darker. The few remaining remnants will shine with ghostly light until even they fade. Then come the black holes. For ages beyond imagining, they will anchor the remnants of galaxies, consuming matter, emitting faint energy. But Hawking radiation ensures even these giants are not eternal. They too will evaporate, dissolving into thin streams of particles. At last, nothing remains but a thin soup of photons and particles spread evenly across an ever-expanding void. The universe persists but in silence. No structure, no stars, no life. The longest timescales. The scale of this fate is staggering. Stars will exhaust themselves over trillions of years. White dwarfs and neutron stars will cool over quadrillions. Black holes will evaporate over 1 million, 10,010, 110,000, 100 years or more, numbers so vast they escape imagination. The age of our current universe, 13.8 billion years, is a blink compared to what lies ahead. Think of it this way. If the universe's life were a single human life of 80 years, our current age would be less than the first day. The silence of heat death stretches so far ahead that our entire history, from the birth of stars to the rise of humanity, is a fleeting flicker, gone before the first heartbeat of eternity. The emotional weight of heat death. There is something uniquely chilling about this vision. Fire and collapse, like the Big Crunch, carry drama, even grandeur. But heat death is emptiness, an ending that is not an ending, an existence without change. It is the idea of being trapped in a universe that has nothing left to give, no possibility of renewal. And yet, the human mind resists this. We long for cycles, for renewal, for stories that begin again. Heat death offers only silence, and perhaps that is why it unsettles us so deeply. It is not just the death of stars, but the death of story itself, reconciling heat death with eternity. If entropy is absolute, then eternity is not cycles, but stillness. The cosmos does not renew, it winds down. But perhaps there are ways to reconcile this with the dream of eternity. Some physicists suggest that quantum fluctuations might still occur in the heat-death vacuum. Tiny sparks of energy might give rise to new universes, even in the stillness. These baby universes could bud off from the silence, each with its own Big Bang, its own stars, its own story. In this way, heat death would not be the end, but the background from which new eternities emerge. Others imagine entropy resets, that in the great cycles of expansion and collapse, entropy might somehow be erased, allowing the universe to start fresh. The details remain speculative, but the longing is clear: to turn silence into rhythm, stillness into breath. Even myth speaks to this. The Norse spoke of Ragnarok, an end in fire, but after the fire, a new world rises. Hindus described kalpas, endless cycles of creation and dissolution. Perhaps even the physicist's heat death is not the end, but one phase in a deeper pattern we cannot yet see. A meditation in silence. Now imagine yourself at the edge of that silence. All stars have gone. All galaxies are dissolved. The universe is vast, uniform, quiet. And yet, you are still here, aware. What does it feel like to exist in such a cosmos? Perhaps you feel despair, the ache of meaning drained away. Or perhaps you feel awe, the recognition that even silence is a kind of eternity. That even without stars, the universe remains vast, mysterious, complete. For in the end, eternity may not be cycles of renewal or endless creation. Eternity may be simply this: existence without end. Even in stillness, even in silence, the cosmos persists. And perhaps that persistence is enough. The challenge of heat death. The heat death problem remains one of the greatest challenges to the dream of eternity. If entropy cannot be escaped, then renewal is illusion. But if eternity exists, then entropy must be reconciled, transcended, or transformed. This tension is not just scientific but human. It asks us how we face impermanence, how we live, knowing that even the stars are temporary. It challenges us to find meaning not in permanence, but in participation, in knowing that we are sparks in the fire, threads in the tapestry, part of a cosmos that burns brightly, even if only for a while. And perhaps, in the silence of heat death, eternity itself waits not as cycles or stories, but as stillness, presence, the quiet hum of being without end. The story of entropy, carried to its conclusion, tells us that the universe ends not with fire, but with silence, a cold, uniform void, stretched thin across an endless expanse. It is the stillness of heat death, the ultimate equilibrium where nothing stirs. And yet, in the face of this vision, human imagination has never been content to stop. Always we search for renewal, for ways to slip through the cracks of inevitability. We ask, is heat death truly the end? Or could the universe, even in its silence, find ways to begin again? The dream of resets. One of the first possibilities scientists imagined is that of entropy resets. In certain cyclic models, the universe might not simply drift into silence forever, but instead collapse and rebound. When it rebounds, when it bounces, perhaps entropy itself could be erased, reset like the wiping of a chalkboard. Picture it. The universe expands for trillions of years, stars dying, black holes evaporating, energy spreading thin. Entropy rises to dizzying heights, but then something shifts. Expansion slows. Gravity begins to gather what has been scattered. Galaxies fall back together, space contracts, and the universe grows smaller and denser. At the edge of collapse, when everything should vanish into singularity, quantum rules step in. Instead of singularity, there is a bounce, and in that bounce, the disorder of the old universe is smoothed away. The new expansion begins as fresh as the first stars forming, galaxies blazing, life stirring, without the burden of the past. Entropy has been renewed, and the cosmos can begin again. This concept is speculative, but it carries with it something mythic. Across cultures, we find the belief that endings are never final, that death gives way to rebirth. The phoenix burns, only to rise from its ashes. In Hindu cosmology, Shiva's dance of destruction prepares the stage for creation. In Norse myth, the flames of Ragnarok clear the world for new life. The scientific dream of entropy resets, echoes these ancient stories. Heat death is not a prison, but a passage, the silence before the song begins anew. the art of mining entropy. Another possibility takes a different path. Instead of waiting for entropy to reset, perhaps civilizations themselves might learn to mine entropy, extracting order from the faint embers left even in a dying cosmos. Entropy, after all, is never absolute everywhere. Even in high entropy states, fluctuations exist, tiny differences that can be harnessed. Imagine beings or machines so advanced they can harvest those subtle gradients, coaxing structure from what appears to us as chaos. Physicist Freeman Dyson once suggested that life might adapt to such a future by slowing its processes, stretching each thought across millennia, conserving energy so carefully that existence itself could extend indefinitely. Life would not end in heat death, it would thin out, spread slow, but endure. Imagine yourself as part of such a civilization. The stars are long gone. You live in vast, cold structures drifting through the darkness, powered by whispers of energy drawn from the cosmic background. Your thoughts come rarely, each one precious, separated by centuries of silence. But you are alive, you endure, and in that endurance, meaning persists. It is a haunting vision. Life not blazing brightly, but flickering slowly, carefully, against the silence. An eternity of endurance, carved from the fabric of entropy itself, order rising from chaos. Still another speculation imagines order emerging from chaos itself. Even in the highest entropy state, the universe cannot be perfectly uniform. Quantum mechanics ensures fluctuations, brief sparks, random variations in energy. Most are small, meaningless, but some could be large enough to ignite something new. From such a fluctuation, inflation might begin again. A tiny patch of space, unstable, swells outward, birthing a new universe. Our own cosmos, some say, may have begun in just this way, a fluctuation in a prior silence. In this sense, heat death is not an end but a seedbed. The silence is fertile. From the quiet, new universes blossom. This idea carries echoes of myth once again. The Greeks spoke of chaos, the void from which all arose. The Egyptians told of none, the dark waters of potential. The Rig Veda speaks of the unmanifest, from which creation stirs. Physics, with its quantum fluctuations, tells the same story in a new tongue. Silence is not empty, but alive with possibility, eternal rebirth. If resets, mining, or fluctuations are possible, then perhaps the universe is not doomed to silence at all. Perhaps heat death is only one stage in a rhythm of eternal rebirth. Imagine a cosmos that lives, dies, and lives again, not once, but endlessly. Stars blaze, galaxies swirl, life awakens. Entropy rises, silence falls. Then, from silence, renewal stirs. A bounce, a fluctuation, a rebirth. Over and over, cycles without end. In this view, eternity is not a straight line stretching forever, nor a final silence, but a circle, a song with many verses, repeating, renewing, transforming. Picture it like the seasons of the universe. Spring, the birth of stars. Summer, galaxies in bloom. Autumn, decline, silence. Winter, heat, death. But then, impossibly, another spring follows, another universe rising, another story beginning. What does it mean, then, to live in such a cosmos? It means that nothing is final, not even silence. Death is real, endings are real, but they are always followed by renewal. The universe is immortal not because it avoids endings, but because endings are never the end. Humanity and the escape from silence. For us, here and now, these ideas raise questions both scientific and personal. If the universe can escape heat death, what does that mean for us? Perhaps it means that our brief lives, our civilizations, are part of something eternal, sparks in a rhythm larger than we can see. Perhaps it means that even when our world fades, Even when our species is gone, the cosmos itself will renew, carrying forward the possibility of life, thought, meaning, or perhaps it means that eternity is not about survival, but about perspective. Even if our universe fades, others may rise. Even if entropy silences our cosmos, rebirth will follow elsewhere. In that sense, nothing is truly lost. A meditation in renewal. Take a moment to imagine yourself not in this universe, but in the one to follow. You awaken under a different sky, with different stars, in a cosmos newly born. You are part of its story, just as you are part of this one. Perhaps consciousness itself loops across universes, glimpsing eternity through rebirth. How does that feel? To know that endings are not absolute, that silence is fertile, that eternity is not threatened by entropy but reshaped by it. Perhaps it brings comfort, the assurance that nothing ends forever. Perhaps it brings awe, the recognition that eternity is stranger than our imaginations can hold. Closing reflection. Heat death remains one of the most formidable predictions of physics. The second law whispers inevitability. And yet, speculation opens doors, entropy resets, entropy mining, order from chaos, eternal rebirth. None are certain, all are dreams. But they carry with them a truth, that we are creatures who refuse to accept silence as the final word. We long for renewal. We imagine rebirth. We weave eternity even into entropy. And maybe, just maybe, the universe itself does the same. We are creatures of time. From the moment we wake to the moment we sleep, our lives unfold as a sequence past behind us, future ahead, the present slipping constantly from our grasp. We measure birthdays and deaths, seasons and years. Time is the canvas upon which every story is painted. Without time, we can hardly imagine ourselves at all. And yet, some of the most profound ideas in modern physics suggest that time may not be fundamental. Beneath the flow we know, beneath the tick of clocks and the orbit of planets, reality may be timeless. Space-time itself, the very stage on which we imagine the universe unfolding, may be an emergent phenomenon, not the ultimate truth. The physics of timelessness. In quantum gravity, the attempt to merge Einstein's relativity with quantum mechanics, equations often reveal a startling feature. They contain no explicit time. The Wheeler-DeWitt equation, a proposed fundamental equation of the universe, describes the total state of reality without reference to a ticking clock. It is a description of being, not of becoming. Loop quantum gravity goes further. In its picture, space is made of tiny loops of energy woven together into a network. Time, in this framework, is not a universal flow but an emergent property of relationships between loops. There is no master clock ticking forward. Instead, time arises from the way events relate, the way one state compares to another. Other models, such as the timeless wave function of the universe in quantum cosmology, tell a similar story. Reality, at its most fundamental, may be described as a static whole, with time appearing only as a secondary, emergent concept like temperature, which arises only when many particles act together. In these visions, there is no universal before or after. The entire cosmos simply is, timeless and complete, the dissolving of before and after. If this is true, then the way we experience life is not fundamental, but perspectival. We see events as flowing, as causes leading to effects, because our consciousness stitches them that way. But in the deepest description, there is no flow, only relationships, only patterns in a timeless whole. Imagine watching a film reel. To you, watching the projection, the story unfolds frame by frame, time moving forward. But on the reel itself, all the frames exist simultaneously. The beginning and end are side by side. Time is an illusion of perspective, so too with the universe. From our vantage, it flows, but beneath that flow lies a reel already whole, every moment already present. There was no first frame, no last frame, only the film, complete. This dissolves the very question of beginnings. To ask what came before the Big Bang may be meaningless, if before itself is an illusion. If time is emergent, then so too are beginnings and endings. They are not features of reality itself, but features of our perception. Ancient echoes. Though modern physics provides the mathematics, the intuition is ancient. Many mystical traditions speak of timelessness as the ultimate truth. In Buddhism, the eternal present is emphasized, past and future as illusions, the now as all that truly is. In Hinduism, Brahman is beyond time, eternal and unchanging, the ground from which the cycles of creation arise. Taoist philosophy hints at the same. The Tao flows without beginning or end, beyond the grasp of clocks. Even in the West, mystics like Meister Eckhart spoke of the eternal now, a state in which all time is present at once. Augustine, in his Meditations, wondered whether time existed at all outside the human mind. Modern physics, with its equations devoid of time, seems to echo these ancient whispers. The ultimate reality may be timeless, living without time. But what does it mean for us, here and now, to live in a universe without time? Pause for a moment. Imagine your life not as a journey, but as a sculpture. Every moment you have lived, every moment you will live, is part of the sculpture. You are not carving it as you go, it already exists, complete. Your first breath, your last breath, and every breath between are all present in the structure. You move through it, but the sculpture itself does not change. This is unsettling. We long for choice, for agency, for the ability to shape the future. But if time is emergent, then the future already exists, as fixed as the past. The flow of choice may be as much an illusion as the flow of time itself. And yet, there is beauty here too. If every moment exists eternally, then nothing is ever truly lost. Your childhood laughter, the warmth of loved ones, the experiences you treasure, all of them are part of the sculpture forever. They do not vanish into the past. They exist timelessly, as real as this moment. The universe as a timeless whole. In this vision, the universe is not a story unfolding, but a whole that is already complete. Time, cause, effect. These are the ways consciousness experiences the whole, not the way the whole is in itself. Imagine stepping outside of time. You would not see events flowing, but the totality of existence all at once, galaxies forming, stars burning, planets rising, life evolving, all simultaneous in the eternal pattern. It would be overwhelming, beyond comprehension, yet strangely peaceful. No rush, no loss, no waiting. Everything simply is. This is eternity, not as infinite duration, but as timelessness, a reality beyond beginnings and endings, beyond before and after. The psychological challenge. For us, beings of time, such a vision is difficult to accept. We define ourselves by our pasts. We orient ourselves toward our futures. To be told that both are illusions strikes at the heart of our identity. And yet, perhaps this challenge is precisely the point. Perhaps to glimpse eternity, we must let go of our grip on time. To release the need for beginnings and endings, for stories with arcs and resolutions. To accept that the universe may be whole in ways we cannot yet imagine. Myth, science, and meaning. Science gives us the equations. Myth gives us the stories. Both point to the possibility that time is not ultimate. Myth whispers of eternity beyond change. Science writes equations without clocks. Together, they challenge us to imagine a cosmos not as a river, but as a sculpture, not as a flow, but as a whole. And in that whole, there is no need for a beginning, no need for an end, only being. We live inside time. We measure our days in the sweep of the sun, our years in the turning of the earth. We mark our lives by birthdays and anniversaries, beginnings and endings. To us, time feels not just real, but fundamental. Without it, how could there be a story? Without it, how could there be us? And yet physics, in its most refined equations, does not need time at all. The cosmos unfolds indifferently, governed by laws that care nothing for our sense of before and after. It is not even there. This tension between perception and reality is one of the deepest mysteries we face. For while physics whispers that time may be an illusion, consciousness insists otherwise. We feel its passage in our bones, in our breath, in the ache of memory and the pull of anticipation, the flow of experience. Pause and reflect on your own awareness. Right now, you feel the present. You remember the past moments that shaped you, joys, losses, choices. You anticipate the future hopes, fears, unknowns. This sense of flow, of moving through time, is the very fabric of consciousness. Without it, experience would collapse into a single, frozen instant. But if physics is correct, if the universe is timeless at its core, then our flow is not fundamental. It is an emergent phenomenon, a construction of the brain stitching together memories and predictions into the illusion of motion. We are not moving through time. We are perceiving ourselves as moving, like characters in a film believing they are alive, while every frame already exists. Imagine for a moment that your life is such a film. From your first cry to your final breath, every frame already exists, already written. You experience it as flow, but the real is whole. What you call now is simply the frame your consciousness is attending to. Past and future are as real as this instant, but hidden from your view. Mystical traditions of timeless awareness. Across cultures, mystics and philosophers have intuited this truth. In Buddhism, meditation seeks to dissolve the illusion of time, anchoring awareness in the eternal present. Past and future dissolve, leaving only now. In Hindu philosophy, the Atman, the true self, is described as eternal, beyond time, untouched by birth or death. The Tao Te Ching speaks of the Tao as timeless, the source of all things, flowing without beginning or end. Christian mystics like Meister Eckhart describe the eternal now, a moment where all moments coexist. Even the Sufi poets spoke of timelessness, of the divine as outside of time, glimpsed only when the self surrenders. These traditions describe states of awareness where time ceases to flow, where consciousness touches something eternal, something beyond change, where beginnings and endings dissolve into presence. Consciousness as a glimpse of eternity. What if these mystical states are not illusions, but glimpses of a deeper truth? What if consciousness itself, in rare moments, can touch the timeless reality physics describes? Speculation grows bold here. Some neuroscientists suggest that our brain's sense of time is a construction, useful for survival, but not ultimate. When that construction falters in meditation, in altered states, in near-death experiences, we may glimpse reality without time. What would that feel like? Perhaps like eternity itself. Not endless duration, but timelessness. Not a road stretching forever, but a presence beyond, before, and after. Imagine sitting quietly, your breath slowing. Thoughts drift away, and with them, the sense of time. You are no longer moving from past to future. You are simply here, in an eternal now. That moment, stretched into awareness, is timeless. That glimpse may be what eternity feels like. The universe and the mind. This raises a radical possibility that consciousness is not merely inside the universe, but resonates with its deepest truths. The brain evolved to track rhythms, to measure time for survival. But in its depths, consciousness may be capable of perceiving the timeless fabric of reality. In this way, Your awareness is not just a passenger in time, but a bridge to eternity. When you feel the flow of time, you are perceiving an emergent layer. When you feel timelessness in meditation, awe, or love, you may be glimpsing the deeper truth, that the universe itself is without time. Death and timelessness. Consider what this means for death. If time is emergent, then death is not the end of being, but the end of temporal perception. Consciousness may dissolve not into nothing, but into timelessness. Death may not be a fall into darkness, but a return to the eternal present that underlies all things. This echoes what mystics have long said, that death is not the end, but a dissolution into eternity. Physics, strangely enough, offers a similar whisper. If time is not fundamental, then birth and death are not ultimate boundaries. They are frames in the film, not the film itself. Psychological reflections. Living with this vision is both liberating and unsettling. On one hand, it means nothing is ever lost. Every moment of your life exists eternally, woven into the fabric of the timeless universe. Your childhood joy, your present awareness, your future choices, all are real, all are preserved. On the other hand, it challenges our sense of freedom. If the future already exists, what does it mean to choose? If every moment is eternal, are we truly agents or simply witnesses? Perhaps the answer lies in reframing freedom. Freedom may not be about changing the eternal sculpture, but about inhabiting it fully, experiencing the present with depth, with awareness, with meaning. The eternal present. Take a breath. Feel it. This moment, right now, is the only one you will ever truly inhabit. Past is memory. Future is imagination. But this present is where eternity meets you. In this sense, you already live in timelessness. You are already part of eternity. The flow of time is the story consciousness tells itself. But beneath the story, you are eternal presence, woven into a universe without before or after. Myth and modern science. Together, what is extraordinary is how myth and modern physics converge here. Mystics describe the eternal now. Physicists describe equations without time. Both point beyond beginnings and endings, beyond flow, to a reality that simply is. Perhaps consciousness is our window into that truth. Perhaps awareness itself is eternity looking through our eyes. Closing meditation. As you sit with this thought, imagine the universe not as a river, but as a sculpture. Imagine your life not as a journey, but as part of that sculpture. Every joy, every sorrow, every choice, all present, all eternal. Feel the weight lift as you realize, nothing is lost, nothing ever ends. You are already timeless, you are already eternity. Imagine looking at the night sky and realizing that everything you see, every star, every galaxy, every nebula stretching across billions of light years may be only a single spark in an unfathomably greater whole. For centuries, we believed the cosmos we inhabit was all there is. But modern theories suggest something far stranger, that our universe may be just one of countless universes, each with its own laws, its own history, its own possibilities. This is the multiverse, a framework in which eternity takes on a scale beyond imagination. The birth of the multiverse idea. The multiverse is not a single theory, but a family of ideas arising from different frontiers of physics. Inflationary cosmology, string theory, and quantum mechanics all open doors to the possibility of other universes. None of these doors is yet proven, but each offers a tantalizing glimpse of an eternal framework in which our universe is far from unique. Eternal inflation and bubble universes. One of the most prominent pathways to the multiverse comes from eternal inflation. Inflation describes the sudden expansion of space in the first fraction of a second after the Big Bang. But some versions of inflation predict that it never completely stops. Instead, inflation continues endlessly in some regions, while pockets where it halts give rise to bubble universes. Our universe, in this picture, is just one bubble in a frothing, infinite sea. Around us, beyond what we can see, other bubbles are forming, expanding, perhaps colliding. Each bubble is a cosmos complete in itself, with stars, galaxies, maybe even life. But each bubble may also have its own physics, its own constants, its own rules. Pause and imagine that. You stand under the night sky, thinking you see infinity. Yet beyond that infinity, there is more, a vast froth of worlds, unseen, uncountable, endlessly generated. Our universe is not the stage of reality, but one stage among billions, trillions, without end. The string landscape. Another path comes from string theory, which proposes that the fundamental building blocks of reality are not particles, but tiny vibrating strings. String theory allows for many possible configurations of space-time, so many, in fact, that some physicists speak of a landscape of universes, each corresponding to a different way the strings might vibrate, a different set of physical laws. If this is true, then the multiverse may be a vast terrain of possibilities, with universes scattered like flowers across an endless field. Our universe is one flower, blooming with its own laws. Somewhere else in the landscape, another universe blooms with entirely different rules. Some may be barren, others rich with complexity. Together, they form a garden without walls, growing forever, quantum many worlds. Then there is the quantum multiverse, arising from the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. In this view, every quantum choice, every time a particle could go left or right, every time a photon could spin up or down, spawns new branches of reality. The universe does not choose one path, it takes them all. In this vision, there is not one you, but countless yous, scattered across countless branches. In one world, you are reading these words. In another, you chose differently, and your life followed a different course. The multiverse here is not far away. It is beside you, overlapping, infinite variations of your own existence. Eternal generation of worlds. What all these visions share is the idea of eternity through abundance. The multiverse is not a single beginning that stretches forever, but an endless blossoming, worlds upon worlds, without first or last. Think of the ocean. Waves rise and fall, foam forms and dissolves, but the ocean itself continues. In the same way, universes may rise and fall, but the multiverse continues. Creation is not a singular event, it is an eternal process. Our universe as one spark. To live in this framework is to confront our smallness. The galaxies we see, 2 trillion, scattered across the observable cosmos, may be a single bubble in an ocean beyond counting. Our universe is not the totality, but one spark in a vast eternal field. But smallness does not mean insignificance. The spark matters because it is part of the fire. Our universe matters because it is one verse in the eternal song. Imagine standing on a beach at night, watching the waves roll in. Each wave is small, but together they form the sea. In the same way, our universe, fragile and finite though it may be, is part of eternity's infinite sea. Ancient echoes of the multiverse. Even this vision, so modern in its mathematics, carries ancient echoes. In Hindu cosmology, countless worlds arise and dissolve in endless cycles. Buddhist texts speak of innumerable universes, layered and infinite. Indigenous traditions describe reality as a web of worlds, interconnected and endless. The multiverse is not just a scientific idea. It is a return of something humanity has always intuited, that reality cannot be confined to a single world, a single story, a single creation. Eternity demands more. Psychological reflections. What does it mean for you, here and now, if the multiverse is real? Perhaps it means that your life is one thread among countless others, unique, precious, but part of a fabric so vast it cannot be comprehended. Perhaps it means that choice and chance echo endlessly, your story written in infinite variations. Some find this disorienting, others find it comforting. If the multiverse is real, then nothing is final. Every possibility is played out, every story told, every ending balanced by new beginnings elsewhere. A meditation. Close your eyes. Picture the stars above you. Now imagine those stars as one universe, and beyond them, countless others, bubbles rising in a cosmic sea, flowers blooming in an eternal field, branches spreading into infinity. You are part of one bubble, one flower, one branch. But beyond you lies eternity itself, woven of universes without number. Closing reflection. The multiverse is not proven. It may never be proven. And yet, as a framework, it offers a vision of eternity that reconciles science and myth, imagination and physics. It says, "There was no first universe, and there will be no last. Worlds are born endlessly, a fire that never goes out. And in that fire, our universe is one spark small, yes, but shining. The universe, you see, vast and glittering with stars, may itself be part of a cycle far greater than we have ever imagined." For hidden within the darkness of black holes, some physicists believe there may be the seeds of new universes waiting to be born. What appears to us as an end, a place where light itself vanishes, may in fact be the beginning of something else entirely. To us, a black hole is a graveyard. A star collapses, its core crushed under its own gravity, until nothing can escape. But perhaps, within that collapse, creation begins anew. Some models of physics suggest that instead of a singularity, where density becomes infinite and our equations break down, there may be a bounce not back into our universe, but into another. From within that darkness, a new cosmos may blossom outward, expanding as ours once did, carrying its own galaxies, its own physics, its own story. From our side, the black hole remains silent. From the other side, it is a big bang. If this is true, then the universe is not a singular miracle, but part of an ongoing process. Every black hole may be a portal, every collapse a birth. Cosmogenesis, the birth of cosmos itself, becomes continuous. Like a tree scattering seeds, the universe sows offspring across the infinite, each with its own unique shape, its own laws, its own possibilities. Our universe, too, may have been born from such a seed, the child of a black hole in another universe long vanished. Imagine standing in a forest. Trees rise and fall, their branches reaching to the sky, their leaves scattering to the wind. Each tree, in its time, releases seeds, and from those seeds, new trees grow. The forest endures not because any one tree is eternal, but because the cycle is endless. So too with universes. Each one blooms, expands, collapses, and within its collapse lies the seed of another. The forest of existence never ends. Some physicists even imagine a strange form of natural selection across the multiverse. Universes that form many stars will form many black holes. Universes with many black holes will give birth to more universes. Over time, universes with the right physical laws to reproduce may become more common. It is a startling thought that even on the scale of the multiverse, there may be an evolutionary pressure shaping the very laws of physics toward fertility. Our universe, rich in stars, heavy with black holes, may be precisely the kind that reproduces best. But this vision is not only mathematical, it is deeply human, deeply mythic. Across cultures, people have spoken of worlds born from destruction, of life arising from death. In Hindu cosmology, Brahma breathes out universes, and when they dissolve, he breathes again, endlessly. The Norse imagined Yggdrasil, the world tree, giving birth to countless realms. The Aztecs told of suns destroyed and reborn in cycles. Even the phoenix of legend carries the same truth. From ashes, fire rises again. Black holes may be our modern phoenixes, their silence concealing a rebirth beyond imagination. And so we return to ourselves. What does this mean for you, for your life, for your sense of being? Perhaps it means that nothing is final. Even the collapse of stars, even the silence of galaxies, even the fading of all we know is not truly the end. It is a seed, waiting to bloom elsewhere. Our universe itself may be a single link in an eternal chain, one verse in a song that never ends. Speculation stretches further still. If black holes can birth new universes, then within those universes, stars will form, collapse, and give rise to black holes of their own. And within those black holes, further universes are born. The chain continues endlessly. Universes within universes, like Russian dolls nested without end. Within our own universe, hidden inside the countless black holes scattered across galaxies, entire new realities may already exist. Vast and complete, unreachable to us, yet real. Imagine looking up at the night sky, at a galaxy millions of light years away. Within it, countless black holes turn silently, invisible to our eyes. Each of those black holes may already contain a universe, perhaps with its own galaxies, its own life, its own night skies. When you look at the stars, you are not just seeing the universe. You are seeing the seeds of universes, the wombs of eternity, the hidden orchards of creation. We cannot prove this, not yet. Perhaps we never will. The event horizon keeps its secrets, and our equations falter when they try to look inside. But science has often grown from ideas that once seemed impossible. Not so long ago, the existence of galaxies beyond our own was unproven. Not so long ago, black holes themselves were speculation. Today they are fact. Perhaps tomorrow, the recycling of universes will join them. Close your eyes for a moment and picture it. You are drifting in space, surrounded by galaxies. Each galaxy contains billions of stars. Each star may collapse into a black hole. Each black hole may blossom into a new universe. The cosmos around you is not static, it is fertile. It is alive with renewal. You are floating in an orchard without end, surrounded by seeds falling silently, blooming eternally. If this vision is true, then eternity is not silence, not stillness, but creation without end. Existence is not fragile, it is fecund. It does not vanish, it transforms. Stars die, galaxies fade, universes collapse. But from those deaths, new universes rise. The chain does not break, the fire does not go out. And perhaps that is why existence feels so abundant, so irrepressible. Life on Earth has always found ways to endure, to renew itself. Forests burn, and from the ash, new shoots rise. Rivers dry, and new channels carve themselves through stone. Stars collapse, and from their remains, new stars are born. The recycling of universes is the grandest expression of this same truth. Nothing ends. Everything transforms. Eternity is not the absence of change, but the endless flowering of change. Black holes, then, may not be the graves we once thought them to be. They may be the cradles of eternity. Their darkness may conceal the first light of new cosmoses. Their silence may be the pause before the next verse of creation. And so, when you look up at the night sky, do not see only the stars. See the seeds. See the universes within universes, hidden in the fabric of what you cannot see. See the eternal branching, the endless renewal. For you are living not in a static cosmos, but in a universe that is part of a larger cycle, a spark in a forest of sparks, a verse in a song that has no end. When human beings first looked at the stars, Long before telescopes or equations, they reached for stories to explain what they saw. The night sky became a canvas for myth, each point of light a symbol of beginnings and endings, of gods and spirits, of creation and renewal. Long before science spoke of entropy or multiverses, myths spoke of eternity. They whispered of worlds that did not begin once, but cycled endlessly, and of fires that would one day go out, only to be kindled again. Religion, in this sense, was humanity's first cosmology, and within it, we find not only the longing for origins, but also the longing for eternity. In Hinduism, the universe is not a single fragile moment, but an eternal rhythm. Time itself is divided into vast cycles called yugas, aeons so long they make galaxies seem young. Universes are born, live, dissolve, and are born again in endless succession. The god Vishnu dreams these worlds into being, while Shiva dances their destruction, and Brahma breathes them out and in, like a cosmic tide. Eternity here is not a line stretching forever forward, but an ocean swelling and receding, again and again, without end. To imagine existence through this lens is to see death itself as only a phase, a turning of the wheel, the silence before another breath. Buddhism echoes this vision in its own way. The teachings speak of worlds without beginning, of samsara, the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. In Buddhist cosmology, there is no first cause, no single spark that brought everything into being. Instead, existence rolls like a wheel, ceaselessly turning. To awaken, to reach enlightenment, is to see through this wheel, to step outside the illusion of beginnings and endings, and rest in the timelessness beyond. Indigenous traditions, too, often spoke of the cosmos as eternal. Many Native American stories describe a world continually reborn, emerging from cycles of destruction and renewal. In the dreaming of Aboriginal Australians, time itself is not linear but layered, always present, always alive, past and present existing together. The world is eternal not because it avoids death, but because it is forever alive in the dreaming, a reality beyond the boundaries of our clocks. But not all traditions spoke of cycles. In the Abrahamic faiths, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, the cosmos begins with a moment of creation. In the beginning, the opening words of Genesis declare, God created the heavens and the earth. Creation here is finite, a singular event, set into motion by divine will. There is a before when nothing existed, and there is an after when everything begins. And woven into these stories is also an end, judgment, resurrection, or renewal brought about by the hand of God. Time, in this vision, is not a circle but a line, a journey from origin to destiny. This contrast is profound. Cyclical traditions embrace eternity through repetition, envisioning the universe as a wheel forever turning. Linear traditions embrace eternity through transcendence, envisioning a cosmos that was created once and will be redeemed once, with no need for endless cycles. Both perspectives seek the same thing: to anchor human life in a story larger than itself, to find meaning in the vastness. One answers with eternal return, the other answers with divine authorship. Yet beneath both visions lies the same struggle: how to reconcile our brief, fragile lives with the immensity of existence. If the cosmos is eternal, where do we fit? If it is finite, how do we face its ending? Religion, at its core, is humanity's way of grappling with this paradox. Myths of cycles comfort us by assuring that nothing is truly lost, that even in destruction, renewal waits. Myths of creation comfort us by assuring that life is purposeful, a story with direction, guided by something greater. Even within traditions, the tension remains. In Christianity, Augustine pondered whether God exists outside of time altogether, timeless and eternal, with creation itself being the moment time began. In Islam, philosophers like Avicenna speculated about the eternity of the universe, even as the Quran spoke of divine creation. Judaism, too, wrestled with the idea of whether God created the world from nothing or shaped it from eternal substance. Faith and eternity were never simple opposites, but threads woven together in countless ways. Imagine standing under the night sky thousands of years ago, without telescopes, without physics, only the silence of stars. What you see is overwhelming, galaxies unimagined yet sensed in the glittering expanse. How would you make sense of it? You might imagine a God breathing universes in and out, or a wheel turning forever, or a beginning sparked by divine command. Each story carries truth, not in its literal details, but in its recognition of mystery, its attempt to place human life within the eternal. And still today, we wrestle with the same questions. Science offers models of the Big Bang, of entropy, of multiverses and loops. Religion offers visions of cycles, beginnings, or timeless divinity. Both speak, in their own ways, to the same human need, to understand how we belong in a cosmos that dwarfs us, to reconcile the finite span of our lives with the possibility that reality itself has no end. You might find comfort in the Hindu vision of endless renewal, knowing that nothing is ever truly gone, that existence always finds its way back. You might find comfort in the Abrahamic vision of a cosmos created with purpose, your life part of a divine story. Or perhaps you drift between them, sensing that eternity is too vast to be held in any single myth, too strange to be captured by any single equation. Close your eyes and let the stories flow together. Hear the wheel of samsara turning, the breath of Brahma rising and falling. Hear the voice that says, "In the beginning, God created." See the dreaming, where all time exists at once, and the Norse tree, its branches bearing endless worlds. Each is a different language, a different metaphor, but all are reaching for the same mystery, the mystery of eternity. For eternity cannot be held in words. It can only be glimpsed, hinted at, sung about in myths and whispered in equations. Myths give it faces, names, dances. Science gives it numbers, models, predictions. But eternity itself is beyond both. And maybe this is the point. Humanity has always struggled to reconcile faith with eternity because eternity is not meant to be reconciled. It is meant to be encountered in awe and wonder. It is meant to humble us, to stretch our imaginations, to remind us that we are part of something beyond beginnings and endings. So when you think of the role of myth and religion, do not see them as opposites to science. See them as humanity's earliest attempts to speak of eternity, to give form to the formless, to turn mystery into story. And in their stories, in their myths, you can hear the echoes of something deeper, the truth that eternity has always been with us, that eternity has always been the stage upon which our fragile lives unfold. Science was meant to replace myth, to sweep away the stories of gods and spirits with the cold clarity of observation and reason. And yet, as it has grown, science has created myths of its own. We tell ourselves these stories not in temples but in classrooms, not in poetry but in equations. Still, they serve the same purpose. They anchor us. They explain our place. They give us a beginning and a frame within which our lives unfold. Cosmology, perhaps more than any other branch of science, is myth-making in modern form. Think of the Big Bang. It begins with an origin point, a singularity, where all matter, energy, space, and time erupt into being. From nothing, or at least from something we cannot name, came everything. Light bursts forth, galaxies form, stars ignite, planets turn. Over billions of years, atoms become cells, cells become beings, beings become consciousness. From a single seed, the universe blooms into all that is. tell this story not with mathematics, but with wonder, and it is indistinguishable from a creation myth. It has all the elements: a beginning moment, a burst of order from chaos, a narrative that stretches from primal fire to the present day. It has prophets, Einstein, Hubble, Gamow, who brought the vision to us. It has sacred relics, the cosmic microwave background, the faint afterglow of creation still shining across the sky. It even has skeptics and heretics, those who once clung to steady-state models or alternate visions. Like all myths, it has its believers and its doubters. The Big Bang is not just a theory. It is a story of origin, the story we tell ourselves to explain where we came from. And like the myths before it, it is powerful not because it is certain, but because it resonates. We crave beginnings. We crave a moment when something began, so that we can make sense of our presence now. The Big Bang gives us that moment. It may be wrapped in science, but it is still myth, still narrative, still story. Consider how children learn about it. A teacher stands before them and describes the universe beginning with an explosion of light. They picture it as a burst of fire in darkness, a cosmic spark igniting everything. Is this not the same way elders once told of God striking flint to light the heavens, or of sons born from eggs of fire? The language changes, but the essence remains. The cosmos begins in a flash, and from that flash comes all. But myths are not static. They shift, they evolve, they are replaced as new visions take hold. Just as the Norse wheel gave way to Christian creation, and as Christian creation now stands beside the Big Bang, so too may our cosmology change. Already, whispers of new myths emerge. Eternal inflation tells us there was no single bang, only endless bubbles, each a universe expanding forever. Cyclic models tell us there was no first time, only loops without end. Quantum gravity hints at timelessness, at universes that exist as wholes rather than flows. One day, perhaps, the Big Bang will be remembered not as the final truth, but as one of many myths of origin, the creation story of the 20th and 21st centuries, eventually replaced by visions of eternity. Our descendants may look back and say, once, humans believed the universe began in a single fiery instant. Then they learned that it had no beginning, that it always was, always is, always will be. The myth of creation became the myth of eternity. And is this not always the way? Myths mirror what we are ready to believe. When we needed order, we told stories of gods shaping chaos into form. When we needed direction, we told stories of creation and redemption, of time as a journey. Now, as we grapple with infinity, our myths stretch toward eternity, universes, birthing universes, time dissolving into timelessness, being existing without origin. Science is not exempt from this process. It is part of it, a new chapter in the same human effort to turn mystery into story. Perhaps one day, when equations have grown stranger and telescopes peer farther, we will no longer speak of bangs at all. We will speak of flows, of fields, of eternities branching like rivers. We will not look for a single beginning, but for patterns that stretch without start or end. And in telling that story, in building that myth, we will once again be doing what our ancestors did under the same stars, weaving a tale to explain the infinite. So, when you hear the story of the Big Bang, hear it not only as science but as myth. See in it the same longing that filled the Rig Veda, the same awe that shaped Genesis, the same wonder that stirred the dreaming. It is our modern creation story, and like all creation stories, it will one day give way to something new. For myths are not meant to last forever. They are meant to guide us until we are ready for a greater mystery. And maybe that is the true myth of science, not that it has answers, but that it always asks for more. That it leads us from one vision to another, never settling, always reaching. Myth becomes science, science becomes myth, and through them both, eternity whispers, waiting to be told again. Eternity is not only a concept of physics or philosophy, it is also a weight upon the human mind. To think of infinity is to stretch the imagination past its limits, to lean out over a chasm without end. Sometimes it inspires awe, sometimes dread. Always, it unsettles, for we are creatures of finitude, yet we live in a cosmos that refuses to be contained. When you sit beneath the stars, you may feel this tension. The night sky is vast, and it stirs both wonder and unease. Wonder because you are part of something so immense, unease because the immensity is so far beyond your grasp. Infinity whispers of your smallness, your fragility, your impermanence. It reminds you that your life, your world, your civilization are brief sparks in a storm without end. Some people respond with fear. To imagine endless time, endless space, endless cycles of rebirth can feel suffocating. If nothing ends, if existence stretches forever, then where is the rest? Where is the final release? The mind, accustomed to beginnings and endings, rebels against the thought of endlessness. It craves closure. It craves a finish line. Eternity, in this sense, feels like a prison, a corridor without doors, a journey without destination. Others respond with comfort. To them, eternity is not a prison but a promise. If there are endless cycles, then nothing is ever truly lost. Death is not an end but a transition. Civilizations may fall, but others will rise. Stars may die, but new stars will be born. Eternity ensures that renewal is always possible. For these people, the thought of infinity is not terrifying, but soothing, a great assurance that the cosmos never abandons itself, that it always begins again. This split between fear and comfort reveals something deep about human psychology. We are storytellers. Our minds seek structure, beginnings, middles, and ends. We make sense of the world by placing it in arcs, by giving it direction. Every book has a first page and a last. Every life has a birth and a death. Every day begins with sunrise and ends with night. Without this framing, we feel lost. But eternity defies the frame. It has no first page, no final chapter, no opening sunrise or closing dusk. It is not a story in the way we understand stories, and so, when we confront it, we feel unease. How do you tell a story without an ending? How do you find meaning in a cosmos that never began and will never end? Our ancestors answered by bending eternity into forms we could hold. Some chose cycles, the wheel of samsara, the breath of Brahma, the endless turning of seasons. Others chose lines, a creation at the beginning, a judgment at the end, time as a journey with purpose. In both cases, eternity was shaped into a form that matched human psychology. Cycles gave us renewal, lines gave us meaning. Both offered us comfort in the face of infinity. Yet the truth may be stranger than both. Science tells us that cycles may exist, but so may endless branching. Time may not be a line or a circle, but something beyond either. The human need for beginnings and endings is not shared by the universe. The cosmos is indifferent to narrative. It simply is, vast and eternal, without need for arcs or conclusions. And here lies the challenge. To live with eternity is to live without the safety of story. It is to accept that the cosmos does not begin for our sake, nor end for our comfort. It is to face the vastness without resolution. For some, this is unbearable. For others, it is liberating. Imagine yourself standing on a shore, waves crashing endlessly. They come, they go, without beginning, without end. You watch them for hours, but they were there before you arrived, and they will be there long after you leave. Does this fill you with despair, knowing that your presence changes nothing? Or does it fill you with peace, knowing that you are part of something that endures beyond you? That is the psychological impact of eternity. It is both terror and comfort. It is both prison and promise. It stretches us beyond what we can hold, forcing us to confront the limits of our storytelling minds. And in doing so, it offers us a choice: to resist or to embrace, to fear infinity or to find peace in it. You may never fully grasp eternity. No one can. But you can feel it, in the rhythm of your breath, in the turning of seasons, in the stars that shine long after you are gone. Eternity is not a story for the mind to contain. It is a presence for the heart to rest within. If eternity were no longer speculation but certainty, if the universe were revealed to have no beginning and no end, how would we live differently? What choices would we make if we knew that existence itself is infinite, that there is no final chapter waiting at the edge of time? Such a revelation would ripple through every aspect of civilization, reshaping our understanding of morality, meaning, and legacy. For many, the promise of endings gives life urgency. We act because time is short. We create because we know that our days are numbered. Death, in its certainty, drives us to find purpose. But what if there were no end, no finish line, only the vast stretch of forever? Would purpose deepen or dissolve? Civilization has always built itself on stories of time. Empires rise, promising eternal glory. Religions guide us with visions of creation and judgment. Philosophies teach us to live well in the shadow of death. But eternity dissolves the shadow. If there is no final judgment, no ultimate collapse, no ending to history, then morality must root itself elsewhere. We cannot measure good and evil by their endings. We must measure them by their presence, by the way they resonate in the infinite. Perhaps this would liberate us. Freed from the fear of endings, we might live with greater patience. Progress would no longer be a race against time. Knowledge would accumulate without urgency. Art would bloom without deadlines. Cultures would evolve not toward finality but toward depth. A civilization aware of eternity might slow its pace, choosing not speed but reflection, not conquest but continuity. Or perhaps it would burden us. The thought of infinite existence could crush the spirit. Without endings, stories lose closure. Without closure, meaning seems to drift. Why build if what you build is swallowed in infinity? Why strive if the horizon is forever out of reach? What comfort is there in knowing that even after eons of triumph, eternity will continue, indifferent to your legacy? Eternity, in the end, may not be a story told through time. It may be a shape timeless, complete, perfect. A circle that never began and will never end. A torus circulating forever. A manifold beyond our sight. Whatever the form, the truth remains. The universe is not merely passing through eternity. The universe is eternity, given shape. Across the long arc of human thought, we have searched for beginnings and endings. Science speaks of a universe expanding from fire. Philosophy imagines time as illusion, and myth sings of cycles, rebirths, and gods who breathe worlds in and out. Each path, in its own way, circles back to the same horizon, eternity. Not a single story, but many. Not one answer, but echoes from every direction, converging on the mystery that reality itself may be endless. And so the question remains, not when the universe began, nor when it will end, but what it means to live within a cosmos that has neither. If there is no first dawn and no final sunset, then meaning cannot be borrowed from origins or endings. It must be found here, in the fragile immediacy of the present, in the choices we make, in the way we live within the vastness. Look once more at the night sky. See it not as a window to the past or a prophecy of the future, but as the endless rhythm of stars, pulsing without first or last note, no beginning, no end. Only the silent, eternal music of the cosmos, and you, listening, part of its song.